Muy buenos días a todos, buenos días a todas. Es un privilegio para
Good
el Centro
morning, everyone.
Interamericano de
It's a
Estudios de
pleasure
Seguridad
for the
Social
Inter-American
colaborar
Center
con
for Social
docencia,
Security Studies
investigación y
as a
asistencia
research,
técnica de
teaching,
la
and
Conferencia
technical
Interamericana
assistance
de
body of the
Seguridad Social
Inter-American
recibir
Conference on
en
Social
esta aula
Security
virtual
to
al
receive
programa
on
Un
this
Rescate de las
virtual meeting
UNESCO,
for the
lanzado
UNESCO
desde
Chair that was
1992,
launched
y el objetivo es
since
promover la cooperación
1992, and the objective is
internacional
just to
interuniversitaria.
promote the
Esta alianza
inter-American
académica entre el
university
CIESS y la Casa de
cooperation.
la UNESCO
So
se ve
this dynamic
objetivo para el
within the
desarrollo y
future
la
studies for
competitividad
the
surgió de
competitiveness
una
and
generosa
development
invitación que nos hizo el doctor
arose
Francisco
for a
Mojica, y
suggestion made
también
by
a la suma
Mr.
de algunos de
Dr.
nuestros mejores
Mojica and
docentes
some
del
of our
CIESS,
best
que nos pusimos de acuerdo
CS
para
lecturers
designar
that we
cientos de
arranged
puntos
together so
para
we can
reunirnos,
address
escucharnos y
120 minutes
reflexionar
to
juntos
gather
el futuro
together
de la
and
seguridad
reflect together
social.
the future of
Todo un
social
lujo en
security.
un mundo que va muy
Everything
veloz y que
for
es muy
a
curioso.
world which is very,
Gracias a
very,
todos
very,
ustedes, a todas ustedes por
very
aceptar
fast.
la
Thank you very
invitación y
much for
aportar
everyone
la
for accepting
distancia
this
desde
invitation.
cada uno de sus 25 hermosos
And for
países para
all
estar
for
aquí.
the
Les
different
recuerdo que
countries.
tenemos un
And I want
sistema
to
de
recall you that
interpretación, un
we have
servicio
the
de interpretación.
interpretation, simultaneous
Ustedes solamente
interpretation
tienen que ir a
system.
la barra
You only
inferior,
have to go
dar
to
clic
the
en donde
below
pueden ver los
and
tres
the
puntos, y
three
en donde
dots
dice español
below,
o interpretación,
and you
eligen
can choose
el
either
idioma de su
Spanish or
preferencia.
English
Así es de
or
que comenzamos.
other
Bueno, para
language.
iniciar
So
con
let's get
esta
started. And
actividad,
just to
me
start
acompaña,
with
nos
this
acompaña a
activity,
todos y
we
a todas
have
el director del CIES, el
Director of
maestro
the
Emanuel
CS,
Dantas,
Mr. Emmanuel
quien nos
Dantes,
hará el honor de
who
dar un
will have the
bienvenido.
honor to,
Maestro, buenos
to
días,
give us the
bienvenido.
introduction.
Muitas
Thank you very
graças, doutora
much.
Berenice.
Thank you very much,
Maravilha,
Dr.
jubilação
Bernice. For me, it's a
moça.
great honor of being here
E,
with you all.
esse conversatório acadêmico
And this academic
com
meeting
pessoas
or session with
analistas,
different
pessoas
people
especialistas
and with the
de grande
specialists
reconhecimento.
of great
E,
acknowledgement.
e eu sei, estou seguro que se queda muito
And I'm
orgulhoso
pretty
sobre isso.
sure that
Muito
ZS is
buenos
very,
dias a
very,
todos e
very
a
proud of
todas.
this. Good morning,
Eu gostaria
everyone.
primeiro saludar a doutora Liliana
First
Lopes
of all, I would like to
Jimenez,
extend my greetings
decana
to
pela
Dr. Liliana
Faculdade de
Lopez
Administração de
Jimenez,
la
Dean of the
Universidade Externa
Faculty
de
of
Colômbia,
Administration at Universidad
ao
External de
doutor
Colombia,
Francisco José
to
Mojica,
Dr.
que por
Francisco
supuesto
Jose Mojica,
saudá-lo e agradecê-lo
holder
por
of the
essa
UNESCO Chair,
iniciativa, né, que
and
trata o
also greet
Academia
our
Política
speakers
de
of today's
Estudos
session and our
do
initiative
Futuro
for the
para o
different
Desenvolvimento
futures studies for the
e a
development
Competitividade.
and
Saludo a
competitiveness.
nuestras y nuestros
And also, I would like
ponentes,
to
que
greet our
grandes
lecturers
especialistas,
that are
personas
great
proeminentes
specialists
que hoje nos acompanham.
that are joining us
A la
today.
maestra Letícia Martinez,
First
ao
of all,
doutor
to Ms.
Juan
Leticia
Carlos e à
Martinez, Dr.
doutora
Juan
Avelina
Carlos,
Alves.
and Dr. Evelina Alves
Saúdo
Lima.
também a las y a los
Likewise, I would like to
participantes de
greet
toda
the
a América
participants
Latina que
from
estão
across
aqui
Latin
conosco
America
e ao
and the
Caribe
Caribbean who
que se
are joining
conectam
us
com nós
today.
outros. Sua presença dá sentido a este
The
conversatório.
importance
É
of this
para
exchange lies
ustedes
in
que
your
estamos aqui.
contribution. That is why you
É
are
honor
here
para o
today.
Centro
It is an honor
Interamericano de Estudos
for
de
the
Seguridade
Inter-American
Social
Center for
abrir esse
Social
espaço
Security
para
Studies
falar
to
do
open
futuro
this
de la
space to
Seguridade
talk about
Social.
the future of social
Hoje,
security.
cerca de 7 de
Today,
cada 10
nearly
pessoas
7
nas
out
Américas
of 10
estão
people in the
cobertas
Americas
por ao
are
menos uma
covered by at
prestação de
least one
proteção
social
social,
protection benefit,
frente a 6 de cada
compared
10
with 6
hace
out
uma
of
década.
10 a decade
Pero
ago.
de cada 10
However,
hogares en la
1
región
in 4
sigue
households
sin
in the
acceso
region
a la
still
protección
lacks
social.
access to
Y
social
esta
protection.
situación
And this
afecta
situation
con mayor
affects
intensidad a los
low-income
hogares
households
de
most
niveles diversos.
severely.
Essa brecha se
This gap,
acienta,
rooted
sobretudo,
above
ao
all
mundo do
in
trabalho.
the world of
A
work,
informalidade laboral
informal
sigue
employment
sendo de los
remains one
rasgos
of the
mais
most
persistentes do mercado
persistent
de trabalho
features of the regional
regional.
labor market.
Quase la mitad de los trabajadores,
Nearly half of
cerca de
workers,
48%,
about
siguen
48%,
em esta
remain
situação.
in this situation.
A essa realidade se
Adding
suma
to
a
this reality
transformação
is the
acelerada
rapid
do emprego.
transformation of employment.
4 de cada 10
4 out of
trabalhadores
10
de
digital
plataformas
platform
digitais em
workers
la região
in the region
carece hoje de cobertura
currently
de
lack
saúde
health
e de
and social
seguridade social.
security coverage.
E Mientras esse
And
câmbio ocorre
while
uma
this
nueva
change takes
força
place, a new force
revolta
is reshaping the
o cenário.
landscape.
Uma, entre 26
Between
e
26% and 38% of jobs in our region are exposed to generative artificial intelligence.
La maioria terá que transformar-se
Most of them will have to be transformed or adapted to the arrival of this new technology,
que puede beneficiar
which could benefit up
la
to
mitad
half
de los
of the
que
jobs
poderiam ser mais
that might become
produtivos,
more productive
graças à la
thanks to the
inteligência
artificial
artificial.
intelligence.
Pero que hoje se bem
However, which are
obstaculizados
currently
pelas brechas
hindered by
pelo
digital
acesso digital
access
e la
gaps and limited
limitada.
infrastructure.
A essa transformação do trabalho
Alongside this transformation of work comes a demographic shift of historic magnitude. Of 2050,
Uma de cada quatro
1
pessoas
in
em
4
América
people in
Latina
Latin America and the
tendrá
Caribbean
60 anos
will be
ou
aged
mais.
60 or over
Cerca de
years.
193
Nearly
milhões de
193
pessoas.
million people.
Mas vida ganada significa também mais anos,
However, more years of life
maior
gained
demanda
also
sobre
mean more
o
years of
sistema de
care,
saúde e
greater
uma nova
demand of health systems,
equação
and a
financeira
new
para o
financial
sistema
equation for pension
de pensões.
systems.
Frente a este cenário, la
Now,
pergunta
given this scenario,
não é se nuestro
the
sistema
issue is
deve
not
cambiar.
whether our
La
systems
pergunta
must
é
change,
como
but rather
devem
how
ser,
they should
com
evolve,
que prioridades
with
e
which
a que
priorities and at what pace.
essa pergunta, como que
So that question,
prioridades e a que
with what
é
priorities and what pace,
cinismo,
is in itself
exercício
a
prospectivo.
perspective
E
exercise.
la perspectiva,
And
antes
perspective
que
or
método,
foresight,
é uma atitude.
before being a method,
Como
is an
dizia
attitude.
Gaston Berger,
As
lá
Gassenberg heard
sintetizou
and
em
mentioned,
5
in 5
disposições
dispositions:
inseparáveis. B lerros, B amplio, analisar em
to look far
profundidade,
ahead,
assumir
to look
riscos
broadly, to
e
analyze in
pensar
depth,
em el ser
to
humano.
take risks, and to think
Nenhuma
of human
política
being.
pública
No
de
public
seguridade
policy
social
on social security can,
jamais
can be called
estratégica
strategic
se renuncia
if
alguma
it
deles.
renounces any of them.
Por isso, este conversatório se
That
escreve
is why this
em uma
dialogue or this
convicção que o
session
próprio Berger
rests upon a conviction
legou.
handed down to
O
us
futuro deve ser
by Berger
descrito
himself.
do
As he
presente
mentioned,
e
the
do
future
passado.
must not simply mirror
E
the present
nunca
of the
a la
past,
simples
but
extrapolação
must
de la
instead be
experiência
shaped as
conhecida.
something new, never as
E se
mere
Berger
extension of
nos
familiar
ensina
experience.
para mirar,
And if Berger teaches us how to
Maurice
look,
Blonder
Maurice
nos recuerda
Blondel
que
reminds
a
us
ser
what to
e
do
a ser com essa mirada.
with that gaze
É o
or with that
futuro
vision.
não se prediz,
The
é o
future is
futuro
not
se
predicted. The future
se
is built.
construi desde o presente
It
com
is
decisões
built from the
informadas
present
e com
with
visão
informed
clara.
decisions and with a long-term
O
vision.
CIESS assume essa tarefa.
So now,
Somos
CIESS takes on that
de
task.
docência,
We are the body for
capacitação
teaching,
e investigação
training, and
pela
research
Conferência
of the Inter-American
Internacional
Conference on
Social.
Social Security.
Desde 1963,
Since
acompanhamos a
1963, we have
instituições
accompanied
e la
the
região
institutions of the
e la
region
formação de seus
in the
pares,
training of their
e la
staff
generação
and
de
in the
conhecimento
generation of
aplicado.
applied knowledge.
Hoje, esse compromisso
Today,
nos
that commitment
exige
requires
mirar
us
nos
to look
lentes.
further ahead.
Em las próximas 2 horas,
In the
estoy
next 2
seguro
hours,
que escutaremos
I'm pretty
4
sure that we
vozes
will shall hear
de
from
grandes
4
precisões.
distinguished voices.
Hablaremos do
We
futuro
will
do
speak
trabalho,
about the future of
do
work,
futuro dos sistemas de saúde,
the future of
do
health
futuro da
systems, the future of actuarial science and employment, and the prospective scenarios for our region. I invite you to listen attentively, to ask questions, and to take away ideas that you can transform into action within your institutions. I would like to thank the Universidad External de Colombia for this collaboration again. I also wish to thank each of the speakers or lecturers for their time and their academic generosity. And also, I would like to thank all the participants for your interest in building together a social security system worthy of its time, one that looks far ahead without losing sight of the human being, as Berger mentioned, and one that dares to be built today in the present without waiting for the future to arrive on its own, as Blondel exhorted us. So now, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for each of you. And I desire a great mission and talk. I hope that you can leverage as much as possible of this mission. Now I will pass the floor to Dr. Vernice Hernandez, the academic coordinator, who will be the moderator of this chair. Thank you so much again. Good day. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our CIESS director. So a chair, an UNESCO chair, is a group of research and teaching group that collaborates with the UNESCO. And it is performed for an impulse for the teaching for an area that has a great interest about the current situations. Nowadays, we have more than 120 chairs, UNESCO chairs in the country. So just for the future for the competitiveness has the host in Externado de Colombia, and that is why we welcome Ms. Liliana Lopez Jimenez, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Administration at the Universidad Externado de Colombia. Dr. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I just want to confirm if you can hear me well. Yes. Okay, I'm honored of being here. Thank you very much. I'm the Dean from the Universidad Externado de Colombia, from the Faculty of Administration in this study place. And thank you very much for my participation for Mr. Francisco Jose Mojica. On behalf of the faculty and the university, I would like to welcome everyone to this event. I would like to mention that here the values of the faculty and university align to the topic of the event and all the work that you have been done in today's session. First of all, it's important to highlight the liberal philosophy that characterizes the Externado de Colombia University, and the liberal vision requires guarantees to exercise the different rights. And when we talk about the social security and the social protection systems, actually it is talking about the affinity of the rights as we are doing here in our university, and for the sciences that we also study according to the nature of this event. In terms of the faculty, I would like to mention that we all together study in an intensive way all the perspectives of the universities. Particularly, we have some other study centers that are responsible for the human management or the management within organizations. And there is where the social protection is a core subject. And also we have some other studies that inform the work for our professors in terms of our digital transformation. As we all know already, and we have already mentioned in multiple firms, are disruptive factors that has relevant consequences. And of course, this invites us to think about the social protection systems that we are working on nowadays with. That is why we have the UNESCO Chair of today's, which is the Future Studies for the Development and Competitiveness. And from the perspective study area, we study relevant topics for the revolution for the human work, the impact of this evolution, of this human evolution of the work in terms of social protection. In that manner, within this UNESCO chair will contribute to the thinking of the governments, of the institutions, and also for the thinking of the civil society. So all these projects, for all the technological challenges or demographic challenges that are still being covered in these sessions. So I wish you all a great chair. And also thank you very much for having me the opportunity of contribution. Thank you very much, Ms. Liliana Lopez Jimenez, the Dean of the Faculty of Administration. Now I would like to present this person. I will be able to comment of this. This is a magnificent person, is Mr. Francisco Mojica. He holds a PhD in Human Sciences from Paris. And also he has done different future studies in administrative and technological universities in Colombia and Latin America. He is a correspondent for Futurables International and a member of various foresight organizations. And also among his works are notable titles such as the prospective techniques for visualization of the future. And also he was a former expert, international expert or ONUDI, permanent guest of ECLAC, as well as visiting professor for Latin American universities. And he received the Medal of the Palmes Academics of France and was a founder of the Center of Strategic Thinking and Foresight and for the doctorate administration at the Universidad Externado de Colombia, where he currently holds a UNESCO Chair in Futures Studies for Development and Competitiveness. Author of different books and publications on perspective analysis in business, regional, sectoral, education, and technological sectors that can help us out to imagine different scenarios to choose the best one through variables, strategic vectorials, and all the project that has to do with different things that have to do following for the future. Thank you very much. I will pass the floor to Mr. Mojica. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to greet Mr. Emmanuel Dantas. Thank you very much. And I very impressed of his knowledge in terms of the monetarist French university. And also he has a clear vision of the importance of this discipline and in the success and the great performance of our organizations. Actually, this is the mission of the UNESCO Chair that I have the honor of manage. In the second place, I would like to greet Ms. Amalia Berenice Hernandez, who has been the manager of this process, and the rest of our colleagues that are joining us today. Dr. Juan Carlos Mora from Costa Rica, from the National Autonomous University in Costa Rica, and important researchers on this important organization, the Inter-American Commission, as Ms. Leticia Martinez and Ms. Abelina Alves. So I'm very happy of having you today, and so we can work together in this presentation. And so we have to start talking on this future studies for the future. And also, I also want to congratulate myself for the initiative of CIESS on opening a space and invite this discipline, which is a strategic discipline. And the importance of this discipline is that this open up the way of the future. Because we can just be still there in the past, but actually This is what the less competitive organizations do, just to stay in the past. So what we are doing now in this Inter-American Commission is awesome. And I just want to congratulate Mr. Dantas and his staff with excellence. So we have to take apart our reactive behavior when we are facing certain issues. What we have to do in the different institutions, just change from a reactive attitude to a proactive attitude, just to answer the different questions that we are asking ourselves for, being prepared for the future. And this is what we want to address today on this discipline. That is why I'm very happy that the Inter-American Conference is addressing at this moment this topic that is taking Latin America for the future, because in the past we have different experiences, of course. But this future perception, it's very relevant on making that the future is the one that will illustrate our actions and make us be more competitive. Now, the perspective is a discipline that aims on the analysis, the exploration, and the acknowledgement. But what is the future here? I really like the future definition of the Spain Real Academia, of the dictionary Real Academia. So this is what will happen in the future, and this is very interesting. Why? Because according to Saint Augustine, that was a philosopher from Plato, the past and the future don't exist. And it's very interesting. The past and the future don't exist. We only are in the present, so that we are always in the continuous present. And the past is only an idea. And of course, we have some other ideas that is like a wish respect to the future. If the future doesn't exist, this is the aim of usefulness for us. And this is a great opportunity because, as a philosopher, Louis Borel, with a phrase, and he also have Mr. Dantas mentioned previously, the future is not foreseen, it is built. The future is only an idea. So that this idea, which is part of the imaginary world or the mental world, can become something concrete or something precise or tangible thing, and that is the role or perspective, to analyze the future and just to see what we'll be working with in the future, so that that wish can become something concrete. In that way, we are anticipating to the future what will is coming. The great majority of the languages of the world, I cover on these three verbal times: the past, the present, and the future. So for us, the present is like the son of the past. Because in the past, we took different decisions that in this moment are facing different consequences, right? So we have a relationship with cause and effect between the past in terms of making decisions and what is happening today. But if we have the relationship in cause and effect between the past and the present, we will also have within the present and the future. I mean, in this future, what will be happening in the future is something that we are deciding today. And actually, as Mr. Dantas mentioned, the future is not predictor. the future is built, because at this moment, while we are making decisions in the present, something may happen in the future, the perspective has an important role. And the perspective says, okay, I will help you out on making decisions for the future 20 years. And at this moment, we are celebrating so that we are not appealing for the reality we are living now. In some, I think that this perspective is very useful for the development and the success of looking for the excellence for the future. And again, I just want to congratulate this Inter-American Center on making this decision. And just to visualize the Social Security with the future eyes. And I think that this is a great advantage that we have here in the institution, because thinking on the future provide a different philosophy or specific conditions for the future. And now I will give you some, I will show you how. Now, Michael, that was the
tiene esta definición de la perspectiva. Se trata de iluminar el presente.
Michael Godet says, he said, we have to illuminate the present with a future perspective. And there is something very interesting that he mentioned. At this moment, different phenomena is happening, and that in perspective we call them future signals. I mean, the future begins indicating what will be happening in a long term. So that is why the role of the perspective is identifying those signals of the future. The signals of the future is the light, as Michelle mentioned, the light that will illuminate, that will make us to understand better, just to give sense of the presence.
Entonces, veamos. El doctor Dantas
So, Mr. Dantas also mentioned something which is very relevant. The world is already changing from analogical way to become digital, and then to be more intelligent. So this takes place, the fourth industrial revolution, on January 23rd, on 2016. And because Klaus Schwab, with his staff of researchers in the worldwide summit, he presented different perceptions of the four industrial revolutions vision that was based on the situation of the analogical world, because this migrates to the analogical way to the digital way. And now we are in a more intelligent world. This is what was presented in this seminar. The most interesting here is that this intelligent world, it makes all the activities of human beings can change, because we have a transformation or an evolution in the different information technologies. And at this moment, we are facing this situation. And what will be happening is much more interesting on what we are facing nowadays. And this French the thinker mentioned that we are now facing a new ecosystem. We are now within the digital world, in the intelligent world, in terms of artificial intelligence, but most of the human activities and our relationship with some other people, our economical relationships, our educational activities, looking for wellness, everything is evolved in this digital ecosystem. Jean Devonet mentioned that this is a symbiosis, just to be within this intelligent world.
el lanzamiento de la cuarta revolución industrial en el año
And
2016,
this
en ese momento se
happened
pensaba que
and
hasta ahí
for
había llegado
industrial world, and we
el
thought
conocimiento
that
humano, pero
the
no, esto apenas
human
comienza en este momento.
thinking just
Se va a
stopped there,
desarrollar y lo que
but
viene va a ser
Jude
mucho
Joné
más
mentioned that what will happen in the
impactante, mucho
future
más
will be
absorbente
more
de lo que
absorbing, more
nosotros ha sido hasta ahora. ¿Por qué lo
impactful.
digo? Por esta
And
razón.
why?
Miren, veamos.
Let's see here.
Estos tres países, bueno, China, los Estados Unidos
For
y la
instance,
Unión Europea,
China,
bueno,
United
pues hablo de
States,
la
and
Unión
the
Europea, la
European
región, no
Union.
un país, sino 27 países. Estos países
These countries
coinciden en
agree
que en las líneas de investigación
agree on
que
the
están
research
enfocadas de
lines
aquí para adelante.
of what we are working
Yo me di a la
nowadays for the
tarea de
future.
analizar, bueno, cuál es la
So
prioridad
I would like
investigativa de
to
China
research what would be
de
the
aquí para
line of
adelante,
research
cuál
of
es la
China for the
prioridad
future, what would be the priority
investigativa de
of
los
research
Estados Unidos,
of the United
cuáles son las
States,
prioridades
what will be
investigativas
the research
de la Unión
priorities of
Europea.
the
Y hay una
European
completa
Union.
coincidencia
And
en
then
estos
we
dos,
find
cuatro,
a
6 fenómenos.
coincidence on this
Lo que
phenomena.
viene de aquí para adelante, entonces,
For the
es
future,
los
what will be
resultados de esta
happening in the
investigación a la
future?
cual están apostando pues estas tres grandes
The
potencias
results that
del
mention on
pensamiento, de
these
la
three
economía
potencies for the
y del
economy
comportamiento social.
thinking and for
Primero,
the
la
world
física cuántica.
behavior, they
La física
mention in first
cuántica
of
le
all
va a
the
dar un valor
quantical science.
tremendo. Un
This
valor
will
de verdad
provide a
enorme que no conocimos
enormous
hasta ahora
change
en inteligencia artificial.
for the
Lo que conocemos hasta
artificial
ahora de inteligencia
intelligence.
artificial es
What we
trabajar
all nowadays
únicamente
know
a
for artificial
partir de un
intelligence is
cero.
based on binary
Bueno, esto es
system
un
or
salto
zero.
a una muchísima
So
mayor
this is a
perfección,
change from
que
a
es
much
trabajar
more
con sistemas atómicos y
a
subatómicos.
much
Y
higher
por lo tanto,
perception for
optimizar,
atomical
pero de una manera
thinking, so
enorme
that we have to optimize
hasta
this in
este momento
a
conocemos.
better
Y
way.
esto quiere decir que esa propuesta de inteligencia artificial
So
va a
this
ser
proposal,
mucho
artificial
más
intelligence, will
inteligente,
be
va a
more
ser mucho más perfecta que lo
evolving
que tenemos hasta ahora.
and be more
Bueno, la
perfect
biología
on what we are facing
y la
nowadays.
biofactura, la biología
The
sintética,
technology and
hablar de
biotechnology
esto,
and
les cuento
biofacture
simplemente el
is
hidrógeno
something that we only have to
como
consider here, the
energía,
hydrogen
la
as
fusión
energy,
nuclear,
the nuclear fusion,
fusión nuclear, no la fisión, sino la fusión nuclear, que es
the nuclear
algo parecido,
fission.
algo parecido al fenómeno que ocurre en
It's
el Sol,
something. It's a phenomenon that is similar
energía
to
que se
what is
genera en el
happening
Sol.
in the
Pero
sun,
nos interesa
in the
sobre
energy that
todo,
is created in the
hablando,
sun.
porque estamos hablando del tema de la inteligencia artificial,
But
esto
going
es
back to
del
our
perfecto
topic, this is
cerebro
something which
computador,
is very
que parece
important for the
ciencia ficción.
European
Es
Union, which
decir,
is
usted habla del uno dice el computador normalmente,
the
pues la gente,
interface
claro,
between
no,
the
vamos a
brain
hablar del
and the
computador
computer.
directamente desde el cerebro, directamente
So actually,
del
we can
impacto del
just
cerebro.
make use of the computer
Y esto no
from
es
the
ciencia
impact
ficción,
of the brain.
está
And
en
also, this
una
is like
de los
science
temas de
fiction.
investigación que están
This is
haciendo estos
something
países
these
y en
are
los
some
cuales
of the
estamos
subjects that
alineados.
are being
Y por último,
addressed in
las
our
comunicaciones
different
6G. En este
research.
momento
And
estamos
now
con
the
comunicaciones
communications
5G y con
6G.
la comunicación 5G tenemos
And the
cosas
communication
absolutamente maravillosas.
6G are
Pues
very
bueno,
relevant
con la
as well.
comunicación 6G esto va a ser pues,
This is
muchísimo
something
más.
that
Entonces, ¿qué es lo que se va
will
a mejorar?
be
Se
considered
va a
for
mejorar,
greater
pero
impact.
tal vez la palabra mejorar se queda corta, no se va a enriquecer, a optimizar
So now
la
we'll have to
relación
start optimizing
de
the
los seres
relationship
humanos
between human beings
con los otros seres humanos,
and some
el
other
manejo de la
human beings
economía,
on
el
the
manejo de
managing
las
or the
finanzas,
management of the economy, the
el manejo de
financial
todas las
system,
actividades
or
humanas, la
all the human
interacción del
activities.
ser
So
humano
the interaction of
con el
the
mundo,
human being with the
inteligente. Por lo
different
tanto, se va
intelligent
a enriquecer
world,
de
so
manera
that this will
superlativa.
be
Pero
enriching
igualmente
in a higher level.
Va a facilitar este proceso
And
las
this,
nuevas
the new
comunicaciones
communications
entre
will
y
make it
esto que se está
easier,
investigando
the
con
process of
la
communication, as this is
interfase
something that we are being
cerebro-computador. De modo que lo que
under
nos
research.
espera es, como dice Joël de Ronet,
And as
una
Cheval
nueva
René
técnica
mentioned,
superior.
we are
Entonces, la pregunta
facing
que
a new
tenemos que hacernos, ¿y
integration.
esto cómo nos va a afectar? Si
And now,
verdaderamente
how
esto
this will
va
affect
a
us?
afectar todas las actividades
Of course, this
humanas,
will affect
¿cómo
all
nos
the
va a
human
afectar
activities
en el tema que nos ocupa, que es el tema de la seguridad
on
social?
the social
En
security,
primer
how this
lugar,
will
hay
affect the
algo
social
muy
security.
importante
In the
y es
first
que la
place,
aparición del mundo
is that
inteligente
the
da,
appearance of the
y por lo tanto el
intelligent world
enriquecimiento, la
and the
optimización de lo
enrichedness
que
of the
viene con la física
optimization
cuántica
of the quantical
y con las
physics physics. And for the generation of this communication has a negative phase, which is a generation of unemployment. And actually, this study that was made for the Oxford University shows that the 47% of the worldwide employment of the human activities will be on unemployment conditions. And of course, this is very, very, very bad. So as we are going to be facing an optimized artificial intelligence world, this means that there is something essential will affect us in which is the interoperability and operability of the data. Nowadays, the management of the data are very important. However, the future data will take place the interaction on the share of different data. Or actually, we can also just manage in a record level the management of the data for the different data from the Social Security personnel. And also this will help to the different financial sectors, for the medical sectors, and also this will be optimized under the sixth generation.
En este instante, el trabajo se caracteriza porque
now, this work is characterized on the formal employment that generates a series of quotations, which are obligations in respect to the health care or for the pensions. And these are fed by the different pension quotations and different benefits of the people that make it of the chain of the quality of life of the worker is better. So all what we are facing now will be changed a lot. Why? Because within the intelligent world will affect the different areas. And first of all, for the type of employment. The traditional employment that we have now will be conserving. However, the informality or informal work has to face us, the negative one and the positive one. And the negative one is under the lack of employment that takes a series of situations, different situations of the formal and informal employment. Because in informal employment, they don't have any kind of benefits. And in other words, this doesn't take place on informal or traditional informality as a consequence of the different economical conditions. But this will be an informality that has to do with the intelligent world and with the super intelligent world that we are looking for the future ahead. And this will help us out to know how to generate a business, richness, based on the different data of artificial intelligence and the communications that we are looking for the future. And of course, this will support not only the legal or illegal works. For instance, we have the service provider as a driver. He has to work by himself without receiving any benefits. And now, if we use the intelligent network, we can create this, we can leverage the conditions of artificial intelligence because it is characterized because they don't have any support or any benefit in Social Security. But at the same time, in the same time, this will help out the platform work.
procesos automatizados.
And at this time, we are making the
Va
automatized
a
processes. For instance,
automóviles
if we
famosos
go
en
to
California y allí no
Elon
ven
Musk
solo operados, simplemente un robot.
automobile
Se pregunta, y la gente que
factory,
trabajaba ahí, ¿qué se
we
hizo?
can
Los
find there
operarios
that they
estaban
are
¿qué se hicieron?
operating with
Pues
different
están
robots.
en el desempleo. Estos son los que hacen parte de ese 47% de
And this kind of
personas,
work make
de
part of the
trabajadores que quedaron en el
47%
desempleo.
of the people that don't have
Asimismo,
any
es decir,
employment.
no es únicamente la generación, digamos, la producción de los bienes
So
por
this
medio,
not only affects the
por
production
medio
of
de la
the
automatización, de la
assets
robotización,
through the
sino
automatization or
igualmente
robotization,
el sector
but
terciario de la economía,
the third level
los
of the
bienes y los
economy
servicios,
sector,
entonces se
with
efectúan en las
the
plataformas.
benefits and
Miren,
sectors and the services,
Amazon, por
are part
ejemplo,
of
tal vez
these
como la
different
plataforma
platforms.
más
For instance,
que se pone
we
como
have
de ejemplo,
Amazon.
porque pues es el gran negocio del sector terciario de venta de objetos, en donde lo que hay
And
es
this sector
simplemente
sell a
es
lot
una
of
intermediación
objects. And
de
this
una
is only our
plataforma de la
intermediate
venta
partner
con
between the
el proveedor
selling, between
un
the
bien
provider
con el
of a
consumidor.
product or with the
Y así
consumer.
como está Amazon, pues hay otras plataformas
And
importantes
also we have some other
como
important
por
platforms,
ejemplo Airbnb, bueno, son
such
muchas en este momento
Airbnb
venezolanas,
and some others,
como Mercado Libre, como
or
las chinas,
Mercado Libre,
Alibaba,
or some other
etcétera.
Chinese
Entonces,
platforms such as
allí
Alibaba,
cada vez se requiere menos
etc.
personal
And in
y
these
cada vez
platforms, we
entonces la
require less
responsabilidad
personnel.
radica
Therefore,
más en la
responsibility
inteligencia artificial y en la plataforma. Esto
is part
significa
of the
que
artificial intelligence and different platforms,
por
and this
otra
is translated
parte,
into
la
unemployment.
informalidad se mezcla
On the
con la
other
formalidad.
hand, we
Es
have
decir, el
informality that
trabajador
is
en
mixed with
algún
formality.
espacio de su vida
I mean,
es informal,
in a
pero
certain
llega
time, in a
a ser
certain
formal.
way,
Después vuelve, si se quiere, al desempleo.
the
Es
person
decir,
is part
hay
of the
una serie de
informality, but also for
trayectorias
the
laborales que
formality.
no son continuas, que
Because there
no
are
van
some other
seguidas
schedules that are
las
not
normas
continuous. They are not
las
under
demandas,
these
lo que mencionábamos de
standards
las
for the
prestaciones,
quotations or
hasta que
the
se
benefits by
trabaja
the
cierto
formal
tiempo y después se tiene
employment.
acceso a una
So
pensión, una
that,
jubilación. No, sino
and
que son
also they
procesos
can be
discontinuos.
able to
Y
receive a
en virtud
pension benefit.
al impacto de la inteligencia
And
artificial,
according to the
cada
impact
vez
of
va a ser
artificial
más frecuente
intelligence,
y estoy pensando
this will be very
en lo que va a ser el
frequent
futuro. Pero por otro
for
lado,
the
la
future.
población que
However,
tenemos
on the other
ahora,
hand, the
como lo
population
mencionaba
that will we
también
have,
el doctor Dantas,
as Mr. Dantas also mentioned,
estamos frente a una inversión
we
de
are
la pirámide
facing
poblacional.
an
Es decir,
inversion of the
asumimos una tercera edad,
population
lo que vamos a ver
pyramid.
hacia el futuro.
For instance, the
Cada
third
vez es menor
or
el número de jóvenes
elderly
y cada vez
people
aumenta
are
más el
greater.
número de tercera edad. Todo esto, entonces, son retos importantes a lo que
So
puede
these
ser
are
una
the
seguridad
different
social.
challenges for the social
De
security in the
modo que
future.
frente a esto, pues hay como una serie, como unas posibles, si se
There
quiere,
is a series
sugerencias,
of
más
possible
que sugerencias,
suggestions
ideas de lo que podría ser,
or
de
ideas
situaciones que se
that what
podrían
might
dar, que
happen
podrían plantear
happening
en el
for the
futuro.
future of
Los
social
derechos portables,
security,
quiere decir
such
que
as the
cada
portable
uno se
rights.
lleve sus derechos
So that this means that we can take the rights
en
in
pensiones, sobre
healthcare,
todo
in
en pensiones y en
pension,
salud,
or in health,
y
in
que
different
los
sectors,
trabajos que haga, aunque sean
and
informales,
the
den lugar a
jobs,
una
even
acumulación,
though they are
por lo tanto,
informal,
de
they should have
experiencia y por lo
a
tanto de situaciones
set
para
of
obtener su
experiences and
seguridad
situations so
social
that they
y
can
que
be
sean
part of the
transferibles
benefits of social
igualmente
security.
de un sistema de subsidiado
And
al
also,
sistema
we can just change from a subsidy
contributivo,
system for
que
the
sea fácil de
contributive
hacer.
system.
Pero soñando un poquito y pensando tal vez con alguna exageración, si se quiere,
But if we just think
si vamos
about
a estar
it,
frente a un mundo
if
en
we
donde va a haber
decide to
un
face
desempleo
a
importante, del
world in which
47%, según
we have more
indicaba la
than
Universidad de Oxford, pues ¿por qué
47%
no
of
pensamos en
unemployment, why
una
don't we
seguridad
think
social
on a social
que
security
haga parte más bien de la
that
condición humana
takes
y
part of the
que haga
different human
parte más bien
condition or the
de
citizens,
cubrir a todos los
or also
ciudadanos
that takes part
de
of
una manera
the
benéfica y
coverage
que
of all the
entre
human beings
de
and
forma
not
correcta.
only
Entonces,
for the
un poquito
formal
ustedes dirán, y un poquito, como
sectors?
decía Michel Godet, la
Because as
utopía de hoy
Michel
puede
Gute
ser
mentioned,
la realidad de
the
mañana.
Ethiopia of today will be the reality of today, of the
va a haber
future.
cambios importantes.
Therefore,
Y, por
we
lo tanto,
will
por
have
eso yo
important
celebro
changes. And
que
that is
la
why
conferencia
I
interamericana
congratulate that the
pues
Inter-American
acoja esta
Conference
perspectiva. Bueno, la acogió ya de años atrás,
takes
pero que
this
tiene
foresight
importancia
vision.
porque pues es lo que viene.
And I
Es la
also
manera como
repeat
podemos
importance
nosotros
because this is
ser
the way
eficientes y
we
ser
can
competitivos.
be more
El ayer y
competitive
el hoy
for
son
the
muy
future.
interesantes,
So
pero hay
yesterday
que
and
pensar en lo que
today
viene. ¿Qué es lo que
times
pasa hoy
are important, but
respecto
we have
a
to think
situaciones
more
como la
on what in the
enfermedad,
present.
como el desempleo,
Situations
como la
such as the
vejez, que
healthcare and
generalmente los
employment,
sistemas de seguridad social
the
están
elderly,
respondiendo a
because and also
situaciones que
to know
ocurren
how the social
ex
security
post.
services or
Es decir,
systems
las
are
situaciones que se dan
responding
después
to different
de que ha
situations.
ocurrido el daño, ¿no? La
And we have to
enfermedad
think
es
about
una salud
uh,
curativa. Es decir,
the
para la gente
support
que está
before
enferma.
the things
El
happen.
desempleo
For instance,
es para
for
la
the
gente
people
que
that
pierde el
are
empleo,
ill,
¿no? Y
or
la
for the
bienestar para
person
la
that
gente que
just
ya
lost the
no es
jobs,
joven.
or for
Pero,
the
¿y por qué no,
people, or the elder
no nos
people that are
preguntamos
not
desde
young
hoy
anymore?
cómo podemos
So
nosotros
we have to
abordar
think about of
situaciones
today's
que se van a dar en el
situations
futuro, ¿no? En donde la
and
salud
how we can
tiene que
address the
dejar
situations in the
de ser
future.
curativa simplemente para convertirse, bueno,
And
tiene que también
only
ser curativa, obviamente,
And also
hay que
we
darle
have
muchísima importancia
to
a
try
la
to be
salud preventiva,
supported
es
for
decir,
the
a la
future, but also we
prevención
have to think about
de la
the
salud que es necesariamente
of the
requerida, lo
different
cual con el
consequences.
apoyo de la inteligencia
And of
artificial
course, with the
viendo un
support of
poquito
artificial
hacia ese futuro,
intelligence,
todo esto es perfecta y esta es la labor
this
justamente
is
de la
a
prospectiva.
perfect line. This
El
is the
envejecimiento
objective
activo,
of
¿no? El ministro de
perspective or
Comercio habla
foresight.
de la era silver. Bueno, esto
And
pues
now
hasta
we
ahora
are
pues
talking
hay
about
que
the
darle,
silver
yo pienso, prepararnos
area.
para el futuro porque esto es lo que va a venir en la inversión
And
de la
actually, we
pirámide
are preparing
poblacional.
for
La
this
empleabilidad
future.
permanente,
The
la
permanent
prevención
employment
del riesgo
has to do
psicosocial,
with the
que es
the
el estrés, que es
social economic
el
risk of
fruto
the
de
population
situaciones
that has to do
de
with different
desmotivación que
situations
ocurren muchas veces
of
en los centros de trabajo
dismotivation
y que
for
generan,
different
pues, por lo tanto,
workloads.
incomodidad y efectos negativos en la salud
And
de la
this
gente.
might have different effects in the
El,
health of the
el,
people.
el, estas situaciones, pues,
So these
van a generar
situations
desmedro necesariamente de la salud del individuo. Entonces, con estos
a
antecedentes, y esto es
bad
un brochazo,
health of the
un
individual.
brochazo, qué interesante esto poderlo trabajar más a fondo. Este es un brochazo, porque
So
lo
this
que
is
quiero
only
justamente es
a
generar
summary or a review.
entusiasmo,
And I just want
motivarlos
just to
a
motivate you
todos
to
para que
generate
le demos un abrazo a la
enthusiasm so
perspectiva y
that we
para que
can
entremos
just
veamos la
start
importancia
understanding
de ser
about the
la gran
foresight
niña
or
del futuro y
perspective
entremos
and how we can
a,
make the
a
analysis for the future
manejar el mundo del futuro.
because
Se
we are able
pregunta
to
el
manage
clic de
the
Schuller, que son
future
los
world.
prospectivistas actuales,
And now
pues
we
de
have
mayor
a
relevancia,
current
cómo se ha ido
perspective
diciendo prospectivo, cómo podría
experts. How?
la Comisión
That says that
Interamericana de
how the
Seguridad Social,
Inter-American Conference on Social
cómo
Security
podríamos hacer el estudio del trabajo, del
can make
empleo,
the
de la salud,
research of
etcétera, etcétera.
employment
Y
health.
él dice, hay que hacernos dos preguntas
And he
muy
says that we have
sencillas.
to ask ourselves
Primero,
two
¿qué puede pasar
questions.
en el futuro?
First of
Son
all,
dos
what will
preguntas muy
happen in the
sencillas.
future?
¿Qué puede pasar en el futuro en
What will
cualquiera de
happen in
estos
the
temas?
future in
Y
each of
segundo,
these
¿y
topics?
nosotros qué podemos
And in the
hacer?
second place,
Mire que en
what we
estas dos
can do for
preguntas
that.
está la clave. ¿Por
So
qué? Porque
within
en la
these two
primera
questions,
pregunta
we have the key.
está lo que le
Because in the
compete a la
first question,
perspectiva,
this is something that has to do with the
que es
perspective,
la respuesta a la pregunta ¿y
which
qué
is
puede
the
pasar en
answer
el
to the
futuro?
question, what
Y la
will happen
segunda,
in
¿y
the
nosotros
future?
qué
In the
podemos hacer?
second, what
¿Qué es
we
lo que
can
le
do
compete a la estrategia?
for
Porque
that.
la
So
perspectiva y
we
la
can just
estrategia van de
apply
la
the
mano,
strategy
¿no? La
because the
una
strategy
sin la
and
otra
perspective
no
are
tendría mucho sentido.
together.
Por eso esta disciplina la llamamos
And that is why
prospectiva
this discipline is
estratégica.
called a
Yo
strategic
quiero poner un
discipline.
ejemplo sencillito, muy
And let me
sencillo,
just give you an example
de lo que he dicho y
on what we
llevarlo
are already
siendo
mentioned
coherente con lo que
and be
estamos diciendo en
coherent what we are
participación,
talking
cómo
today
la perspectiva nos
on the
puede ayudar
anticipation and
entonces para
perspective for the
ingresar al
future.
futuro, cómo la luz de las tendencias
Because
mundiales
this is the light
nos
of the
puede
different
dar
world
entonces
tendencies
iluminación
that this
para
perspective can give
entender
us
un
a
poco lo que
light
puede
to
acontecer y para
understand what
tomar
will happen in the
decisiones
future and
de lo que va a
so that
pasar
we
porque
can
el
make
futuro se
better
construye,
decisions.
no se
Because the
desarrolla, se
past
construye.
is not is
Lo que
built.
tengo acá es una aplicación muy sencilla de una herramienta que se llama los ejes de Peter
What I
Schwartz,
have here
que dice
is
es
called
necesario
the
tomar dos
axis of Peter
variables. Yo tomé
Schwartz.
dos
So
variables
it's necessary
y
to
planteé
take
para
two
cada una de dos
variables
hipótesis. Mire,
to make two
la primera variable
hypotheses.
es la
The first
capacidad
variable is a
institucional de la
capacity, institutional
anticipación.
capacity of the
Y la pregunta
anticipation.
que yo me hago es,
And
¿qué
the question
capacidad
that we
tiene
have
cada
to ask
institución
ourselves is,
de
what will be our
anticiparse?
institutional capacity for anticipation. And this institutional anticipation capacity will have two hypotheses. What will happen in the future? That we might have institutions with high level of artificial intelligence, and this is why we need the support of the quantical physics or the different networks of this generation, and just to be aware of that. And being aware of these situations, we will be able to be more coherent with our ideas or visions. But what might happen also is that our institutions are not aware on the importance on their first steps into the artificial intelligence, so that this digital support will represent on the facility or the easiest way to the management of the different data. So the multiple conditions will present according to our context. And two things might happen. So as I mentioned previously, to be aware on the to be involved of the digital world at this moment, but actually we will continue being more analogical, or actually we can just find ways of how to be involved in the digital world. And the second variable is the structure of the work. We may think that we will continue with a formal and stable employment, in which the structure of the employment or the accumulation of the time, for instance, for a pension, and then for the payment for the pension will continue. And the formal employment, therefore, will continue, and we will just be there. We will just stop there. However, in the other scenario, is that the impact of artificial intelligence will take us a fragmented work where different discontinuous progress, and this will be what we are been working on every day. So on the one hand, we will have intelligent unemployment, as we already mentioned, that this will generate artificial intelligence, but also this combination between informal and informal will take part of the individual life and the conditions that will be presenting in the usage of the intelligent tools. So we will have two conditions for fragmented work, and also just to think about the formal employment. So if we can see here this image, we have the positive hypothesis or a negative hypothesis, or the most or negative also, the less featured hypothesis. However, we have four combinations of these scenarios. So first of all, we have the first scenario is the happy ending. In this way, we will have institutions with high employability, but at the same time, we are conscious or aware of the fragmentation of the job and the work with the discontinuous intelligence. Because in different structures, we are prepared for that. Therefore, our social security institutions will have to face different situations. That is why we have to look for strategic situations. Just to say that a social security system is working well, and the informal work is being transforming. And now we have the negative perspective. So we are convinced that the formal work won't change. Or we can consider the conditions of the stable informal employment. And at the same time, the negative and positive, at the same time,
pensemos que al mismo tiempo nuestras instituciones pues no
at the
fueron
same time,
capaces
our
de
institutions
ingresar de manera
eh,
oportuna y de manera seria
weren't
al
able
apoyo
to
digital, al desarrollo
address
inteligente.
the
Yo lo
different
llamo, nos cogió
situations
la
with
noche,
the
porque esto
support
sería
of
vivir en el
the
pasado,
digital world.
pensar que el empleo
Then
fue
this
una
is,
cosa
and I will
a
call them
conservar
like living
y
in the
pensar
past.
que pues el apoyo digital igualmente
And we have
va a
to
ser
think that
el
this
que
digital
conocimos
support
y no
is
el
the
que se
one that
tiene
we
ahora
are
consecuencia de todo lo que dijimos.
is the one that we already have
Este
been
escenario lo
using.
llamaría yo, nos cogió la
And
noche.
this scenario,
Hay otro
I
escenario
will call this
que
scenario
está en la
like
parte de arriba.
we
Tenemos
have
instituciones
problems.
con alto apoyo digital, somos conscientes de lo que viene en el mundo inteligente, pero
And now will some other scenario,
pero no somos conscientes
we are
de que
not
el empleo cambió.
aware that the
Sí,
employment already
pensamos que
changed,
el empleo
but we
sigue siendo
think that the
formal.
employment is
Esto lo llamo yo
still for
ineducar el ciclo.
informal. And this is in the
Qué
wrong
interesante
place.
que seamos conscientes de la importancia
And it's very
de la
interesting to be
inteligencia
aware
artificial
on the importance of artificial
con
intelligence
estos cambios que se vienen.
according to
Las
the
nuevas
consequences or the
sexta
different changes
generación,
that we will have in the
pero
future, where
no
this
tengamos
quantical
claridad, no tengamos conciencia
physics, but
de que el empleo va a cambiar.
we
Y por
have to be
último,
conscious
son las
of that the
IAS.
employment will
Entonces,
change.
pues,
And now,
tenemos
for
nosotros,
the
somos
last
conscientes de
the
que la
last
estructura de
the
trabajo va a
last
ser
part
diferente,
that we are
va
conscious
a
or we are
ser
aware that the
empleo
structure of the
fragmentado,
employment will be
trayectorias
different
discontinuas,
with different discontinuous
pero
progresses.
somos conscientes de eso y eso es positivo
But
para
we are
nosotros,
aware on
conscientes
that, but we
de la
are not
importancia que
aware
tiene
on the
el apoyo
importance
digital y
of the
que viene
digital
y
support
sumergirnos
and what will
naturalmente
happen in the
y vimos
future. And that
todo
is
el
very
cambio que nos va a
important
traer
to
la
make use
digital
of it.
Entonces, sí, estamos haciendo el trabajo, pero lo estamos haciendo con
And
dificultad.
of course,
No,
we
esto
are
lo llamo
making the
yo con
job, but
esfuerzo.
we are making
En el
this with
futuro vamos a
very
estar
with
en una de
hard,
estas cuatro condiciones.
with hard
Esto es muy interesante. Vamos a encontrarnos
work.
en una de estas cuatro, con total y absoluta seguridad. ¿En cuál? Eso depende de lo que nosotros hoy hagamos.
And this
Y dejemos
depends on
de
what
hacer.
we are doing in the
Y
present and
ustedes
what
me
we
dirán, pero
just
bueno,
stop
ya sabemos que
doing.
tenemos que apostarle a la
So
ideología
we
super
are
feliz.
aware
Sí,
that we
tenemos que
have
apostarle al final
to
feliz,
leverage
pero
the
tenemos
most
al mismo
for
tiempo
just to make the
evitar
most of
que
this
sucedan cualquiera de
happy
los otros,
place.
porque los otros son negativos. Y
And just to
precisamente son
avoid the
escenarios
other
en
aspects,
donde
because
lo
the other
que
two
hay
are scenarios that
es desequilibrio.
they have
En el lugar equivocado hay
imbalance.
un desequilibrio
In the
entre
wrong place, we
lo
have
formal
unbalance,
y las instituciones
which is a
de
informal
apoyo digital.
employment,
Esa
and
no es la
also for the
realidad.
digital
Se llama el
support
lugar equivocado.
institutions
Y con
because
las
they are in the
IAS hay
wrong
un
place.
desequilibrio porque no le estamos dando
And also with the
importancia a
other
la
part, we have an
relevancia que
imbalance
tiene
because we are not
la
aware
inteligencia
of the
artificial
relevance
que
of the
viene
usage of
hacia
artificial
futuro. Y
intelligence
nos
for the
cogió la noche,
future.
pues hay un equilibrio por lo bajo, pero es negativo por esa razón. Y
And
entonces,
also we
es
have
muy
a
interesante
negative
el
instance, but
equilibrio
for the happy
entre las dos
place, there is
hipótesis
a
planteadas, que
balance
son
between
las
these
hipótesis
two
que más nos
hypotheses.
convendrían. Y entonces se trata de construir, el futuro se construye, no se adivina.
So we
Sí,
have
vamos a construir final feliz,
we
pero al
have
mismo
just to
tiempo
build
vamos a
a
hacer
happy
lo posible
place, a
por no
happy
caer
future,
en
but we
alguno de
have to
estos
make
escenarios
the
que
most
son
to
escenarios que no
avoid
nos
being part
convienen.
of these
Pero al mismo
negative
tiempo tenemos que
scenarios.
estar atentos a no equivocarnos de camino.
So we
Porque
have to
si
be
bien
attentive and
le
not to
apostamos al final
make
feliz,
mistakes
si bien
in the
pusimos todo
process.
nuestro entusiasmo
And if
y
we
las
are
estrategias
all
necesarias
enthusiastic
para
and
final
necessary
feliz,
strategy
es
for that
necesario
very
ver en qué
happy
momento nos
ending,
podemos
we can
salir del
just
carril, nos podemos
see
equivocar de camino
in
y
which moment we
podemos
can
caer
just
en cualquiera de
change
estos
a
otros
little
escenarios que, como dije, nos
and
excluyen.
avoiding some other
Y el
inconvenient
ciclo
scenarios.
final feliz, con esto termino, ¿no? El final feliz es esto, es
And
una sociedad social que el
finally,
futuro no
our
será un destino
final
de
future,
prosperidad
a happy
solo para los
future,
trabajadores formales,
this
sino
will
una
be only
arquitectura
not only
inteligente
for
de
the
protección de
formal
activos,
employment, but also
saludables
for
y
the
sin
protection for
bienestar,
the life,
hacia riesgos sociales
for the
predecibles y
different social
manejables,
risks that will
para que
be
no nos pase lo
manageable,
que le pasó a este barquito que nosotros
so that we
pintamos,
can
que
avoid
no miró
this
hacia futuro,
consequence as
y como
this
no
ship,
miró hacia futuro, no identificó dónde estaban
because
los escollos
in the
y
present
no
they
vio
didn't
aquí
identify
el
what
héroe,
will be
este artista fue el culpable
the
de
errors
esto que vino
or
enseguida.
the consequences, and just to avoid the
Finalmente,
iceberg
¿qué
crash.
es prospectiva? prospectiva es innovación
And
social.
finally, what
A
is
mí me gusta
perspective?
mucho
This
esta
is
definición,
social
digamos, que ya está viendo
innovation.
la
And I really
definición
like this
diciendo eso.
definition of
Él dice,
perspective of Michel
prospectiva es
Godet
pensar
that
y
says
obrar
that
de manera
perspective is to
diferente.
think and
Esto
to
es
work in different
innovación
way.
social.
So this
De
is
modo
social
que,
innovation.
enhorabuena,
Therefore,
eh, la Comisión Interamericana
therefore,
piensa
this
en esto, piensa
Inter-American
que
conference
realmente
think on that,
le da sentido
and
a
this
la
makes
seguridad social
sense to
con
social
visión de futuro,
security
porque está
for a
haciendo
future vision
innovación
because
social,
it
que es
is
fundamental para ser
making social
excelentemente
vision
competitivos.
for being more
Muchísimas gracias. No
competitive
sé
in the future. Thank you
seguí
very much.
exactamente o dejé
And
que me
I don't
dieran
know
los
if I
minutos
already comply
del
with
tiempo que
the
me dieron.
time. Thank you
Ya
very
lo
much.
conocemos, doctora. Entonces, con mucho gusto le escuchamos unos minutos de más. Muchas gracias por su
Okay, no
aportación.
worries. Thank
Ahora
you
que
very much
decía, les quiero
for
generar
your comments.
entusiasmo. Realmente
And
no sé
as you
si
mentioned, I want to
ya
generate
después terminó
enthusiasm
la
to be
frase
more
de generar entusiasmo en
enthusiastic.
la perspectiva, sí nos deja, bueno, me deja un poco preocupada. Y justo para hablar del
And
empleo
just
y
to
de
think
esta, del
about
trabajo y
unemployment
de
and
esta
work,
perspectiva
and
que
for
usted
this
nos dio para
perspective
poder
that you
conocer
already
el
mentioned, and this
47%
table for the
del desempleo
47% of
va a ser
unemployment,
resultado de la
that will
aplicación de
be
inteligencia
the
artificial,
result or the
pues le
application
damos
of
la bienvenida a
artificial
la doctora
intelligence.
Avelina
We
Alves
welcome
Lima.
Miss
Ella
Avelina
posee una
Alves
sólida
Lima.
formación
She
académica,
holds
cuenta con títulos de licenciatura,
a
uno
PL,
de ellos en trabajo social y el
degree
otro en lenguas
in social
internacionales
work
y
and another
gestos,
in
una
Portuguese
especialidad en
language and
Estado, movimientos
literature,
sociales y
a
culturales, cultura y
specialization in
ciencia
state
y
social
también un
movements and
doctorado en
culture,
política social.
and also a
Profesionalmente
PhD
se ha
in
desarrollado
social
en el Servicio
policy.
Público Federal
She has
brasileño,
developed within the Brazilian
enfocándose en el
Federal Public
análisis y
Service,
elaboración de
focusing
políticas
on the
sociales
analysis and
y
formulation
seguridad
of social
social.
and social
Se ha
security
desempeñado como
policies,
analista
and she
técnico en
has
políticas
served as a
sociales y
technical
administración de
analyst of
gestión
social
e
policies at the
innovación en
Ministry
servicios
of
públicos
Management and
y
Innovation in Public
posteriormente en el
Services
Ministerio de Seguridad
and the
Social,
Ministry of
también
Social
trabajó en el
Security.
Ministerio de
She
Desarrollo y
also
Asistencia
worked at the
Social,
Ministry of
Familia y
Social
Desarrollo
Development and
Integral,
Assistance, Family, and the
centrándose en el
fight against
análisis y
hunger,
elaboración de actos
focusing on
normativos
regulatory
relacionados
acts
con
related to
prestaciones
non-contributory
asistenciales
welfare
infantiles.
benefits.
Entre sus publicaciones
Among
recientes se
her
encuentran los
recent
artículos
publications
Salario por
are
maternidad,
a
nuevas
maternity
perspectivas
salary,
en la
new
actual
perspectives
producción
in light
legislativa
of
y la
legislative
jurisprudencia
developments,
del
and the
STF, y el futuro
jurisprudence
del
of
trabajo y los retos
STF,
para la
and
protección
the
social.
future of work and the
Actualmente
challenges
es
for social
funcionaria
protection.
directiva
She is
y
currently
docente
the
del
coordinator
CIESS y le
of
damos
regulatory
la
drafting at
bienvenida
the
a
National
la
Secretary
doctora
of Social
Avelina
Benefits
Alves
and
Lima.
also for the
Adelante,
CIESS.
doctora.
Thank you very much, Ms. Avelina.
Hola, buenos días. Me
Hello,
gustaría
good
saludar a los
morning.
presentes, a la
Thank you
doctora
very
Liliana
much for
Jiménez,
everyone, and also Ms.
al
Liliana
doctor Francisco
Jimenez,
Mojica,
for Dr.
a la maestra
Francisco
Leticia
Mojica,
Martínez,
Miss
al
Leticia
doctor Juan
Martinez,
Carlos, y
Dr.
desde el
Juan
CIESS
Carlos,
al
and
maestro
from the
Manuel
CS to
Dantas
Mr.
y a la
Emmanuel
doctora
Dantes
Berenice.
and
Muchas
Dr.
gracias
Berenice.
por
Thank you very
la
much
excelente
for
organización de
the
este evento.
invitation, for the excellent
Bien, voy a
organization of this
empezar
event.
compartiendo mi pantalla.
Now I will start sharing my screen now.
Buenos días también a todos que nos acompañan desde diferentes
And also,
países.
good morning from
Para
all
mí
the
es un
people from the
gran
different countries.
honor participar de un
For me,
debate tan
it's a great honor
importante
of
con
participating
estos
on this great
expertos, aunque
debate
no pueda
along with
aportar
different
datos optimistas
experts,
sobre el futuro de la
even
seguridad
though I
social.
cannot
Sin
support or
embargo,
provide
podemos empezar a
optimist
pensar
numbers or
posibles alternativas, ¿no?
figures of the artificial intelligence for
Entonces,
social
me
security.
gustaría
I
empezar
would like
con
to
con una
begin
breve reflexión.
with a short reflection.
Cuando ya está completo.
Vale, el siguiente, por favor.
Great. The next slide, please.
Vale. Entonces, me gustaría comenzar con esta
So I
reflexión
would like to get started with
a
this
partir de estas tres
reflection
preguntas.
based on
Entonces,
these
¿cuántas personas
questions.
aquí creen que tendrán la misma
So, how
profesión dentro
many
de 20
people
años?
think that you will have the same profession for
Y
the
la
next 20
flexibilidad
years?
es una libertad o la ausencia de
And the
alternativas.
flexibility is
Eso es
a
que me
freedom
gustaría
or the
reflexionar un
absence or
poco.
alternatives.
Y por último, ¿quién
And
financia la
then,
seguridad social cuando crece el trabajo sin contrato?
and then, who funds Social
Entonces, creo
Security when informal
que cuando
works
hablamos del
work?
futuro del trabajo, muchas
I'm sorry,
veces
works
pensamos en la
grow.
inteligencia
So that is
artificial,
why we all
robots,
need artificial intelligence,
oficinas
robots,
híbridas,
or
pero hay
hybrid
otra realidad,
offices,
¿no?
but we have some
Millones
other
de personas
reality.
hoy trabajan sin contrato
Thousands of
estable,
people
sin
nowadays work
vacaciones pagadas, sin
in
jubilación
unstable employment
garantizada.
without a pension,
Entonces, yo
without
pienso que la
holidays, etc.
pregunta no
So
es
that
solo
I
cómo
think
cambia
that
el
this question
trabajo,
is
sino quién
not
queda
only how the
mantenido y
work
quién queda
changes,
expuesto.
but who are
Entonces,
exposed and who is
hoy
protected.
el debate no es solo sobre
So now the
innovación,
debate is not
sobre el
only on
futuro,
innovation or the
es sobre quién
future,
gana
but
¿verdad?
who
¿Y
will
quién pierde
gain
protección?
liberty and
Creo que
who lose
es
protection?
una reflexión importante para
So this
hacer
is an important
debido
reflection
al
so that we
seguido, por
can
favor.
begin with today's debate. The next slide,
Bien,
please.
entonces, como ya dito el profesor José Mujica en sus
Okay,
palabras, el
as
futuro del
Mr.
trabajo ya
Mujica mentioned
llegó,
already, the future of the
porque el
work,
futuro no es algo
it's already here
que
because the
podemos
future
adivinar,
is
¿no?
not something that we
Pero el
should
futuro no llegó
guess.
igual para todos.
But the future is not the same for all.
Entonces, aquí tengo algunos datos
So here I
sobre
have
el
some
trabajo
information on
y de
the
la
work.
Organización Internacional de Trabajo nos dije que más de 2
According
mil
to the
millones
ILO,
de
says that
personas
more than
trabajan en la informalidad
2 million of
y
people work
solo
in informality, and
47% de la
only the
población mundial
47% of
tiene al
the
menos una
world
cobertura
population
efectiva de
has
protección
a
social.
less effective
Eso está
social
en el
protection
Informe de Protección
coverage.
Social de
So
la
this is based
Organización
on the
Internacional de Trabajo.
social protection on the ILOs.
27% de los
The
empleos en
27%
países de
of
la
jobs in
OCDE
the
están altamente
OECD
expuestos
countries
a la
are highly
automatización por
vulnerable
inteligencia
to
artificial.
the AI-driven
Y los
automation.
trabajadores con menor educación
And the
enfrentan más el
workers
riesgo de
with less education
desplazamiento.
face a greater risk
Y el
of
trabajo en
displacement.
plataformas sigue
And the
creciendo en todo
platform
el
work
mundo
continues
con
to
la
grow
transformación de la
worldwide
economía
with the
digital.
transformation of the digital economy.
Entonces, la inteligencia artificial promete
So
una
the
revolución
artificial
disruptiva,
intelligence
¿no?
promotes
Y al
a
mismo
disruptive
tiempo, solo
transformation. And at the same
47%
time,
del
only the
mundo tiene cobertura
47% of the
efectiva de
population has
protección social.
effective coverage for social
Entonces, la
protection.
pregunta no es si el trabajo
Therefore, the
cambiará,
question is not that
¿no? La
if
pregunta
the
es,
world will change. The
¿cambiará para
question
incluir
is,
o para excluir estos
so
trabajadores?
this will be part of
Al
the
siguiente, por
exclusion or
favor.
inclusion for the workers.
Bien, ¿y qué está cambiando?
And what
¿No?
is changing here?
Entonces, la literatura muestra que
So the
3
literature
fuerzas
shows
principales
that
están
there are 3
transformando los
major
empleos.
forces are transforming
La
employment.
digitalización y
The
plataformas,
first one,
que es
digitalization and
la llamada
platforms, digital
economía digital,
platforms, that
la
is part for the economy, digital
automatización
economy,
e
the
inteligencia
automation and
artificial
AI,
y la fragmentación de
and
empleos,
the job
freelance,
fragmentation,
temporal, informal.
the freelance, temporary,
Entonces,
and
el empleo
informal.
tradicional de
So that
tiempo
the traditional
completo
employment
deja de ser la única forma de
is
trabajar,
not
no
the
va a
only
desaparecer,
way of work,
pero crecen nuevas modalidades
but there are
para
some other
actores,
kind
productores
of
breves,
modalities,
freelancers digitales que encontrar
freelancers,
tareas
in digital
online, y
freelancers, or just to
etcétera.
find some other digital task,
Entonces,
etc.
para trabajadores con alta calificación,
So
eso
for
puede significar
workers with
autonomía,
greater
libertad, más
qualification,
años de
this is translated
ingreso,
into
pero para
liberty or
trabajadores menos
autonomy. But
escolarizados,
there's
muchas veces
but with
significa
workers
ingresos
with
variables y menos
lower
derechos.
level of education, they don't have these
Entonces,
rights.
el profesor José Mujica ya ha mencionado que el Foro
Mr.
Económico
Mujica already
Mundial,
mentioned that
o
in
los
the
foros del Foro
World
Económico
Forum,
Mundial, y el
Economy
foro
World
estima que la
Forum,
transformación tecnológica
estimates that
dejará
the digital
de 500 millones
transformation
de
will
puestos
keep
en esta
in
década.
different growing
Entonces, la preocupación
for
es
the
cómo las
next decades.
instituciones van a
So the
acompañar
question
este
is
ritmo,
how
¿no?
these institutions
Al siguiente,
will
por favor.
take place of this process.
Y cómo estas transformaciones van a impactar la economía digital.
And how these
Esa
people
transformación de la economía
will be
digital,
part
perdón,
of the digital
van a
economy.
impactar el trabajo, ¿no? Entonces, los avances tecnológicos han traído
So the
consecuencias
technological
significativas,
progress
eso
have significant
cierto,
progress.
es una realidad,
And
pero
also this
también
is a reality,
problemas.
but
Y
also
el mundo
this
laboral
has
es uno
different
de los
problems,
ámbitos
and
más
the labor
afectados.
world is the most
Entonces,
affected.
en un estudio de la Organización Internacional de
So in a
Seguridad
study
Social,
of
nos
the
muestra que
ILO
en las décadas
showed
del
that
1990
if
a
from
2000,
the 90s
los
and
nuevos
the
empleos creados se
2000s, the
concentraron
new
en
jobs created
áreas
were
extremadamente
concentrated in
opuestas.
extremely
En otras palabras,
contrasting fields.
se creía que los
In other
empleos
words,
menos
they
calificados serían los
found
más
that
impactados por la tecnología. Sin embargo, ese
the
estudio demostró
employers of
que
lower
desde la década de
level were the most
1990,
affected and
los
was
empleos
from
de
the
ciencia y
90s.
médicos
And
han
the
sido los que
employments over the
más
middle
han
level was the
desaparecido.
ones that disappeared.
Entonces, esto se debe a que estas ocupaciones implican tareas
And
rutinarias,
also this
mecánicas
is
y
related into
programables,
a more
fácilmente
different
reemplazables por
workers.
ordenadores, robots.
And this
Y este
takes place
fenómeno
for
es
the
porque
works
los
done
expertos
by
denominan
different
de
computers
polarización del
or
mercado
different
laboral
PCs. And
o
this is why of
polarización
the
laboral.
polarization
Entonces, la
of the
tecnología van a
labor
afectar
market.
principalmente
And this
los
may affect
trabajadores de alta
primarily the
calificación,
workers for high
principalmente de la
qualification
área de tecnología
in the areas of technology,
para esto sí,
TI,
puede ser una
or
oportunidad
IT, and
para
actually
el
this will be
crecimiento
an opportunity for the
profesional,
professional
para
growing
la posibilidad de mejores
or the
condiciones de trabajo,
possibility of
pero para los
greatest
trabajadores
conditions of
menos
work. But
escolarizados,
for all those
que
workers with
ejercen
lower levels,
actividades más
dedicated
manuales,
to the manual
eso puede
activities,
significar
this
menos protección
might
social y menos
mean
derechos.
less social protection or less
Entonces,
rights.
los nuevos empleos creados
So
se
the new
concentran en áreas
employment
extremadamente
created
opuestas.
has
Empleos bien
the
remunerados,
opposites
como le has
because we
dicho,
have
que son, por ejemplo, de los
already
sectores de alta
jobs
tecnología,
well remunerated
investigación,
for the
innovación,
research or
y empleos mal
IT
remunerados y hoy muy
profiles,
precarios, por
and also for
ejemplo,
the less high level
transporte,
workers for
reparto, comercio minorista,
transportations
unipersonal, que son
or
históricamente
personal
los empleos
care.
los empleos de cuidado son históricamente no remunerados, digamos así. Entonces, por un lado, tenemos trabajadores altamente
So
cualificados
on the one
que
hand, we
pueden
have high
beneficiarse de las
qualified
transformaciones
workers that has to
tecnológicas
do with the
y
transformation
por
of the
otro,
digitalization.
trabajadores
And the
precarios
other
con
hand, we
bajos
have
niveles de
precarious
educación y sin
workers
protección
with high
social.
levels of education and without social
Al
protection.
siguiente, por favor.
Next
¿Y
slide,
por
please.
qué esto afecta más a los menos escolarizados? Bien, los
And
trabajadores con
why?
menor escolaridad suelen
And
concentrarse en
why
funciones, como
this
ya hemos
affect us
dicho,
with less
más
education?
manuales, más fácilmente reemplazables, con
So this
baja barrera
affects
de
more for
entrada
those
y
that
con
have
salarios más bajos.
do
Y
manual
también con menor poder de negociación.
task
Entonces,
or for
por
more
eso que
easily
somos más
replaceable.
afectados
And
por
that
las
is why
transformaciones
we are
tecnológicas
more affected for the different transformations of
y
the
consecuentemente por
digitalizations
la
and
informalidad
also for
también.
the informality.
Entonces, así pues, estos empleos precarios y manuales
So this
siguen
precarious or
existiendo porque
manual
son
employment
difíciles
has these
de
consequences
automatizar
because are different to
por
be
completo, digamos
automatized
así.
completely.
Muchos de esos trabajos
Most
requieren
of the
presencia
times or most of
física,
these
adaptabilidad
works
y
need
interacción humana.
adaptability or human
Entonces,
interaction.
algunos ejemplos son empleos de la limpieza, las
And some
entregas, la
of
construcción
these
y el cuidado
examples has to do
personal,
with the
¿no?
people
Y
that clean the
además existe
houses or
una
different
gran
personnel for the
oferta de
maintenance.
trabajadores disponibles para estos puestos,
And there
más
are
la llamada
also there are more people this available
industria
to do this
del
kind
trabajo.
of job.
Y asimismo, las empresas de estos sectores buscan
And
reducir costos.
the business
Entonces,
of these sectors
esto
look of this
ejerce
kind of
aún más
people.
presión
And
sobre
of
los
course,
trabajadores.
this put more
Al siguiente, por
pressure
favor.
on the workers.
Bien, y aquí tenemos un ejemplo de
And here we
estos
have an
empleos que son
example
creados por
of
la
those
tecnología, por la
employments that
llamada
are created
economía
by the technology
digital,
according to the
y es el
digital
crecimiento del
demand,
trabajo por
which is
plataformas digitales.
a
Entonces, según
growing
la OIT,
of the growth of digital platform
este
work.
tipo de trabajo crece
So
rápidamente en
this
todo el
kind of
mundo, ya
work
involucra más de
grows
150
worldwide
millones de personas
with more than
globalmente.
150 million people
Pero
globally.
también trasladar
But
riesgo al
also
trabajador, como
to
por ejemplo
shift
la
this
espera
risk
no
to the worker,
remunerada, los
such as
costos de
unpaid waiting
vehículo y de
time, the
equipo,
vehicle equipment
ingresos
cost,
impredecibles,
or the
mayor
unpredictable
riesgo de
income,
accidentes de
increased
tráfico,
risk of traffic accidents,
evaluación algorítmica que no está
algorithmic
clara
evaluation, which is
y
not clear,
ausencia de protección
and the lack
social.
of social
Entonces,
protection.
les pido disculpa porque esta imagen está en portugués, pero me
So
parece muy
I
significativa.
apologize myself because this image is in
El hombre en
Portuguese,
la
but I
mochila de
find this
delivery,
very,
la
very
naranja,
meaningful.
pregunta:
The
¿Por dónde es
person,
mejor sabiendo que eres tu propio
the
jefe?
person in the
Y el
orange
otro
bag says,
responde: Yo no duermo.
when it's better
Entonces, aquí entra en
to have,
juego
it is not
otro
better
elemento
to be your
importante,
own
que es la idea
manager.
meritocrática liberal de que el trabajador será su
So I
propio
mean
jefe,
that, of course, in the
pero
future,
un
the
jefe que
worker will be
trabaja
their
con
own
jornadas agotadoras,
manager.
con riesgo de
However,
accidentes de
they just
tráfico y sin
work with
protección social.
less, with
Entonces,
less rest.
otro reto que las instituciones
And
de
this is some
seguridad
other of the
social también
challenges
van a
that the social
enfrentar.
protection systems or institutions have
El
to
siguiente, por
face.
favor.
The next slide, please.
Bien, aquí tengo un ejemplo de mi país, ¿no?
And
De Brasil,
here I also
un
have some
espejo
other examples from
regional.
Brazil as
Entonces,
a
estos son
regional
datos del
mirror.
Instituto Brasileño de Geografía y Estadística de Brasil, que hace
This is an
pesquisas,
example for the
digamos, grandes
Statistics
por todo lado.
Brazilian Institute.
Y en 2024,
And it says that in
cerca de
2024, Brazil
7
had
millones de personas
1.7
trabajando sobre
million of
ellos
people
de
working
plataforma
through
digital.
apps
Creo
in
que ahora en
digital platforms.
2026 este número ya está en casi
And
2
now
millones.
this number is almost in
Entonces
10 million.
fue un aumento de 25.4%
So
frente
there
a
was a
2022.
25.4
¿Y dónde
increase
están estos
compared to
trabajadores? Están
2022.
principalmente
And
en
these
transporte de
workers were primarily
pasajeros,
in
¿no?
the transportation of
28.3%.
passengers with 55.3%.
39.3% en entregas
We
y
have
los demás en servicios
29.3% for
diversos.
deliveries
Entonces
and the
hay un
remainder
mercado
various
creciente en
services.
Brasil de las plataformas
So we have
digitales.
a growth,
Pero hay un
a
dado muy
continuous growth
preocupante sobre
of these
ellos.
apps in Brazil.
Más de 70% estaban en la
However, more than
informalidad y
70%
menos
of them
alto
were in the
contribuyen a la
informal
previsión social.
sector and fewer
Entonces
contributed to the
son
social
trabajadores que
security.
enfrentan riesgos
So these are
de
workers that
accidentes
face
de
workers
tráfico
of
y no
accidents
tienen una
within the traffic,
cobertura
or they
de
don't have
seguridad
any
social.
insurance for
Entonces,
social
esto también tiene un
security.
costo
And
muy
of
grande
course,
para el
this
país,
also
para el
has a
gobierno,
higher
sobretudo para
cost
el
for the
Sistema
country and
Único
for
de Salud de
government,
Brasil, que es
mainly
universal.
for the
Entonces,
universal
un
social
trabajador se
security
accidenta
system in Brazil.
para ser atendido por el Sistema Único de Salud y este costo
And this
el país
cost
tiene que arcar, el gobierno tiene
is very, very high for
arcar
the
y no hay
country.
ninguna cotización de los trabajadores y tampoco de
And
las
if
empresas de
there is
plataforma
any
digital.
quotation
Este es
for
un
the
desafío
different workers in
importante.
the digital
Hoy
platforms,
vamos hablar también de
and I think that
actuarial,
this is
¿no?
very
Entonces creo
important.
que esto ya está en la mirada. Al siguiente, por favor.
The next slide, please.
Sobre el trabajo de plataforma en Brasil, que me
Okay,
olvidé de
only
decir.
for the
Hoy
platforms,
existe un debate
platform work in
institucional
Brazil,
sobre la
we
relación
right
entre
now
los
have
empleadores
a institutional
y las plataformas
debate for the
digitales.
different digital
Yo, por
platforms and
ejemplo,
for
cuando
the
estuve en el
drivers.
Ministerio de Previsión
For instance,
Social,
when I
seguí
was
de
in
cerca una
the
de estas
prevention
discusiones
social security
y la decisión
system, we
ahora
had different
sobre si
discussions, and the
existe o no una
decision on
relación
this
laboral entre
is
las
if
partes
there is
está en
a
las manos
relationship between
de la
them,
Corte Suprema Federal.
and this was
Entonces,
debated
los
by the
representantes de los
federal court.
trabajadores se quejan de la precariedad de las
Because
condiciones
these kind of
laborales,
workers
mientras que las
are
empresas
not,
niegan la existencia
not
de
are
una
not
relación
agree
laboral.
or
Entonces, este
don't
tema
agree of
está
these
en la
conditions
orden
that
del
they
día
were
en
work
Brasil
in.
y creo que aún no ha sido votado
And
por
I
la
think
Corte
that this
Suprema,
has
pero es un tema que
not
me interesa muchísimo.
voted
Yo estoy
yet
acompañando para saber
within
lo que
the
va a pasar.
court. And actually, I just
Bien,
want to know what will
y
happen
como
on
ya ha
this.
dicho el doctor José Mujica, la
And
seguridad
as
social
Dr.
está bajo
Mujica
presión,
already
¿no?
mentioned, the Social Security is under
Y
pressure.
esto es un dato visible y
And this is a
palpable,
visible
¿no? Cuando
data,
más
and
personas
we cannot
trabajan
avoid
fuera del
it.
empleo tradicional, del empleo formal,
Since many
cae la
people work
contribución
within the
regular al sistema
informality, we
aumenta la
need to regulate the
protección individual
systems, and
de los
also
trabajadores,
this
¿no?
this is
Frente a la
related into
desigualdad
individual
en
vulnerability that
jubilación,
may increase.
las
The
mujeres tienden a
future
ser
inequality
las más
on
vulnerables por la
retirement
brecha de
grows
género
as
y
well,
por
and women
históricamente
tend to be more vulnerable
se concentrar en las actividades de
because
cuidado,
historically
sobre
this was
todo no
centered for the
remuneradas.
care with
Y aumenta
with
la presión
any income
social
within the
sobre
care
gasto
for
público,
women, and then for
asistencial y
the
salud,
pressure on public
porque si
spending on
no,
social
los
assistance and
trabajadores no
healthcare
pueden contar con
increases.
una jubilación,
So if the workers
entonces
doesn't have
se
any
queda la asistencia social
retirement, they need the social
por
assistance
fase de vejez, por ejemplo, ¿no?
for the elderly phase.
Entonces, los sistemas de seguridad social
So
fueron
that the social
diseñados para
security
empleo
systems
formal.
were designed for the
Estoy
formal
finalizando. Pero el
employment.
nuevo mercado laboral
But
es
the new
intermitente y
labor employment is
múltiple y
intermittent
fragmentado.
and it's
Entonces, vamos a
fragmented.
modernizarnos la protección social.
So the
Tendremos
social
trabajadores
protection, we
activos
will have
hoy y
active
vulnerables
workers
mañana,
nowadays
¿no?
and vulnerable
Entonces,
tomorrow.
tendremos un mercado laboral
And
del
so we
siglo
will have a
XXI,
labor
pero
market
con
of the
protección social del
21st century,
siglo XX.
but with social security
Entonces, ¿qué
of
hacer?
the
¿Eh? A la siguiente,
20th
por favor.
century. The next slide, please.
¿Qué hacer?
So what we
Esa es
can
la
do.
pregunta que más se hace, ¿no? Entonces, ya estamos diante de esas transformaciones, pero ¿qué vamos a hacer?
So what
Entonces, no
we are
existe
going to
una
do.
fórmula mágica
This is not a magic
ni
formula.
una receta única para esto, pero
We don't have
la
any single
formulación de
recipe for
políticas de
this,
protección social
but
debe priorizar la adaptabilidad
la
a nuevos
formulation or
contextos
social protection
sociales.
should
Entonces, no podemos tener
readapt
un modelo
this
de
to
protección
new social
social
context.
para
So
una
we
realidad
have
que ha cambiado, ¿no?
a
Por
different
ejemplo,
social protection for
protección
the
social
different
portable
reality.
entre
For
trabajos,
instance, we have to
responsabilidad
do
compartida
portable
entre
protection
plataforma y
between
trabajador,
jobs shared responsibility between platforms and workers, continuous training and retraining, decoupling social protection from employment, which is very important because the traditional employment, such as we think about it, that we have been following for many years ago, it doesn't exist on that. We are facing different kind of employment. And some experts says that we have to start thinking, oh, a universal, a basic monthly benefit.
Essas sugerências são de algum
And these
experto
suggestions
que
come from an experts, from experts that they may think that what will happen because it depends on according to the economical context of each of the countries. So we don't have to avoid the innovation because it's not possible. We need to update. So the digital economy needs different parts, such as flexibility. And I think that we don't have to change between innovation or protection, but we have to cover both. And here I just show you the main resources that I used, mainly for the ILO, different institutions for social protection. For those that wish to review more about this topic. And I would like to finish with this phrase that says, true innovation isn't about creating apps, it's about creating shared progress. So working together doesn't guarantee the pension or the retirement. So I think that we have to start thinking that the progress is just to have an adequate social protection for different times of the life of different people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your participation and of having me today in this session. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Evelina. Y pues también nos deja mucho que pensar, ¿no? ¿Cómo hacemos para formular políticas públicas?
Thank you very much, Ms. Avelina. And actually, we have to start thinking our importance on training and also just to separate social protection into employment. So I have a proposal representation of the CIESS, which is a training, research, and technical assistance body. I invite you all, if this is the first time for you of being here in this session, please just review our academic program in our webpage. And this is a friendly webpage source so that you can review all the content. We have different training activities. We started on June, so that was only a space for this program. For those that don't know us, we have an expert or training phase, and I think that you will have a great experience on that. Okay, so now I hope that you can just send us your questions, and I will be pass with the other expert, which is Mr. Juan Carlos Mora. Okay, he has a degree for the different development progress, a PhD in government and public policy with special training in foresight from the Institute of Foresight. And also he has a specialization in strategy for Peru in Institute for the Future of Peru. And also he has a foresight seminar with El CLAC and in Spain and in France. She has a specialist in scenario design and a strategy degree with Central Mexico. He has worked as university lecturer and as a consultant in both the public and private sectors, focusing on planning, project management, evaluation, foresight, social security, social solidarity economy, occupational health, and pension systems. He has experience on different costs, and he has also been consultancy services for organizations such as international institutions, such as IOM, FAO, IUCN, and some other public institutions. He is also a columnist for the newspaper La Nación in Costa Rica, coordinator of the project Costa Rica Towards 2040, Scenarios of the New Normality, and author of the book La evaluación de la responsabilidad social como mecanismo de compensación social. And he has currently making lecture for international and national meetings. And currently he's researcher for UNA and UCR and CIESS and National International Consultor. And Mr. Juan Carlos will talk about the future of healthcare systems. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. I just want to thank Ms. Berenice and Mr. Dantas for the opportunity of being in this important event. And also, thank you very much, Ms. Liliana from Externado de Columbia University, and particularly Mr. Jose Francisco Mujica. And I'm very pleased of being here with him today. And Ms. Avelina and Ms. Leticia Martinez. And of course, when we talk about the future, we cannot ignore that everything is not happening as we expected. And there are different elements of that future that make us think or reflect on what will happen in the future. In this case, I will develop the topic of the future on the healthcare systems, which is a topic that is crucial and has been developed in the last 4 years for a diploma course at CIESS, which is a healthcare and social security diploma course, so that we have designed a change, types of change for the social security systems, and that system each month has different change signals. And this is eliminated so that this has give us the opportunity to have an idea of fundamental items on how we'll be working on terms of healthcare in the social security systems in this case. And this has been already addressed by Ms. Avelina and Mr. Mujica. So this is an image that we use in the course. This is in the left side, we have an operation from 1940. And this is an operation because the first character is not the patient, but the surgeon. And the image on the right is a contrasting image that says that there is no physician touching to the patient. So there are only people managing machinery, and the robot is the one that makes the surgery. And I think that is very important asset that artificial intelligence can provide us. And I think that in that moment we have the technology and the artificial brain to cure many things that during the history we didn't imagine previously. However, this is not necessarily have to focus on the admiration or the greatness that we find for the usage of artificial intelligence, as Ms. Avelina mentioned previously. So what will happen after having this access to this? In the first place, to understand and just to have an idea what things we have to capture for the future, we have to see, first of all, the social security systems and what are their dynamics. The dynamics in a healthcare system is something that will happen previously. And also, this might be an idea of what will happen, or just to have a hypothesis of the future. So in this diagram or this chart of the public health, the healthcare sector can be vulnerable in how we can just manage the public policies. And this has given different signals that can take us to different conclusions, preliminary conclusions. First of all, we have important data here. So if we see the reality of the technological acceleration that we are living today, and the different accesses that we generated, This means that we relatively we have uncertainty on what will happen with the systems in healthcare. For instance, we are living, we lived a pandemic in which the duration of the creation of a vaccination was like 9 months versus 16 or 14 years in average for the development of this kind of element. So that I think that we have a technological capacity in intelligence and development in a high level. However, we also have a paradox here in red that says that we have more than 250,000 dies due to different illnesses. As Mr. Mujica mentioned, 35.2% of the population in the Americas has different healthcare needs that are not met already. And we have another technological window that is being widened, but also it continues to be more closed. On the other words, the central paradox of the healthcare systems of the future will be a balance topic between the technology that accelerates and institutions that doesn't take this correctly.
Del doctor Mojica, prácticamente como si nos hubiéramos puesto de acuerdo los vectores
by making different scenarios for the future. What we are saying here is, as Ms. Abelina already mentioned, the problem doesn't lie only in the innovation, but it's just to convert innovation into something that is public value, that is real for the collective evolution for the humanity, not only just to differentiate us as society. And the question is, what will happen in the future, as Mr. Mujica mentioned? So in our signal gathering, we have a fragmented or inexpensive. And this is importance of the different scenarios because these scenarios provide us different facilities to have different alternatives.
Por supuesto, antes de que ocurra, ¿verdad? Para no llegar tarde, como decía el doctor Mojica, atender el que ya está enfermo, atender lo que ya pasó.
And just to address someone that has already ill, but the perspective doesn't predict that future. But it depends on the decision of the present.
Que usamos en la publicidad decía, es la frase parafraseada, la frase de Michel Godet que usó el doctor.
Michel Godet mentioned, as Dr. already used it, the decision is in the present for the different healthcare systems that can be light for the future of the signals of the future. So now we have a set of premises which had been already concentrated and the different signals. So we have been centered this in these different topics. So we are activating more than 200 sources of information with different information, around 50 signals, and the ones that we already mentioned. Of course, we're understanding that the healthcare systems are not linear because they have complex behaviors between innovation, financing, social protection, lifestyles, different visions in the political environment. So there are different ways that incide on them, on the different system, because this system is not an easy process. And with these premises have been covered by different data. So the change signal says that, okay, this is what is happening because we have this article or this information or this data that was already released in different places. However, from 2021, we have invested less of the minimum that we have to be investing for the healthcare systems. And of course, the answer here is the um, one third of the current expenditure come from the households. And this has consequences for different topics. So what we are not doing to get money. So if we have a rapid diagnostic and in some years I will have to pay because I have to take care of my life, we have a complexity here, of course. And even though the 65% of the deaths was created by the transmissible diseases in the Americas, this is something that we have to build different scenarios as well. So these 50 change signals says that have been gathered in these global sectors. What is generated is something like that as artificial intelligence, artificial strategic intelligence that have been already replicated. What we do is, okay, this signal has to do with this premise that we are having here, so that they are just mixing signals and making groups for the vectors of change for the future. And with these changes of future, we might be able to create different scenarios. And these scenarios have provided us different outcome. For instance, what are the things that are being mixed on this? First of all, we have a concept that was already used by Mr. Mojica, the Peter Schwartz planning, that was their anticipatory governance for the public intelligence in terms of the governance of data and the trustfulness, or just to avoid different consequences. So this is a great topic, okay? And the other topic has to do with the financing and sustainability and protection, because everyone are aware of the lack of social security financing because it's very complicated. There are less quotation. And besides this, also we need to review the climate change and of course the capacity of the operational systems of the healthcare systems. If we consider all this when we did the cleaning of them, this is a chart for the Stanford grid that identifies the uncertainty of the activities, in which we process different kind of signals, and in this color blue says that are the ones that we have greatest significance or more presence or more incidence in the future. And this is how we classify them: AI, interoperability, financial sustainability, climate change, sanitary social security, and sanitary labor force. So we have to reduce it. And when we made a reduction, artificial intelligence, it was not a critical uncertainty because basically we already know what is the place for artificial intelligence. We all know what this can do. What we don't know is what will happen with the governance of this data. Who will be managing this? If we will end up as a science fiction movie with an agent with access for healthcare systems data, or we end up into precarity. And with these two elements, we start building two scenarios. First of all, there are scenarios that are probable to be not predictable. For instance, I think that Costa Rica is one of these cases because we are based on the political decisions. And Actually, this is not on technical hands. This is something which is very, very bad because they have to take into consideration the microeconomical criteria, or as you already know, for public value, and this has to be accessible for everyone. So this helps us out just to set these four scenarios for the anticipatory governance, public intelligence, and how we will take this solidarity income. With this, well, this will be part of the universal salary for non-contributory pensions. I mean, there are a lot of population that are not part of this sequence, and that is why it's very important to address. And also we have four scenarios, and what we are saying here is that there is a scenario that is not desirable, which is the algorithm fragmentation. It's a scenario in which the social protection systems are not the same as the ones previously. I mean, the separation.
Finalmente, a partir de estos escenarios que se han construido, hemos creado este modelo. Ahora, esto es lo que en planificación llamamos cómo probar los escenarios, ¿verdad? Y lo hacemos haciendo simulaciones. Entonces, a eso le llamamos el stress testing de las estrategias. O sea, ¿qué pasaría frente a una nueva pandemia? ¿Qué pasaría frente a una crisis fiscal severa? ¿Cómo reacciona el sistema? ¿Verdad? ¿Para qué? Es para encontrarle las vulnerabilidades al sistema. O sea, si no le conocemos las
Find the
vulnerabilities
vulnerabilities of the
nos va a
system.
pasar que cuando nos venga
What will
esto,
happen with
¿verdad?
this? So when we have the crisis, we won't be prepared for that.
Aquí hay todo un desarrollo. Esto es una ponencia.
So here we have a development,
todo un
and
documento
actually we
que
have a
apoya estos
document
procesos,
that supports
que
this
se actualiza,
process
como yo les conté,
that is
cada
fed
cierto periodo de señales.
each
Entonces,
time,
el estrés test
every time.
a probar la
And we
capacidad
have
del sistema de
dedicated
salud
this
para reaccionar
to
ante esos
try
cambios. Entonces,
the
leemos que los datos
healthcare
son muy claros
systems in terms
hasta
of
que uno
different
los
changes.
mezcla y ver cómo,
So we
cómo se,
have
cómo,
visualized the
cómo se
less and lower
y venimos diciendo que
severe
a partir
changes.
de eso se
And
han
I would like to
generado
mention
6
that from
estrategias que
this,
las
we
consideramos
have
de no retorno, de no retorno
concluded into
en
6
planificación.
strategies,
Estrategias de no retorno
which
son aquellas
is
estrategias que no importa el escenario que
that
se
it
dé,
doesn't
la estrategia es
matter
importante.
which
O
scenario
sea, no
we are
importa cuál sea el
facing.
escenario,
So
esa
it doesn't
estrategia
matter what
tiene
will
como
be the
base.
scenario. This strategy will be
Y
like
bien,
the
pensé que iba a
benefit.
sonar la música porque estoy terminando, pero me sonó. Dice que los futuros de la salud no
So the
se
future
decidirán
of
por la
the
existencia
healthcare will
de la
not be
inteligencia
decided
artificial,
by the
sino por la
existence of
existencia o
artificial
ausencia de
intelligence
inteligencia pública
or
para
without the
gobernar
existence
esta
of this,
inteligencia.
but with the
Eso me parece
intelligence
que es
of governing
clave
it.
de decir y
And
es
I
algo
think
que
that this is something what is
nos
important
da
to
todavía una
mention.
esperanza de que podríamos
There is still
eventualmente
something
tener
that
una
we
sociedad
can
más
do
justa y
in
más
order to have
solidaria.
a more
Así que muchas
solidar
gracias y
with
les
a people with more
agradecemos.
solidarity. And thank you very much for this space for my presentation.
Muchas gracias,
Thank
doctor.
you
Y
very
bueno,
much.
me quedo con dos ideas del futuro.
Thank you
Tenemos
very
un
much,
exceso de
Mr.
posibilidades y eso nos permite, en el caso
And I
del CIESS,
think
a través
that
de la
we have a lot of
capacitación,
things
a lo mejor
to do
encontrar
here,
con
and
otros
through this
alumnos
training
y
at
docentes
CS, we
las
can find
posibilidades de mejorar
within
para nuestras
lecturers and
instituciones.
students
Y sí,
the
a través de la
improvements for
comunidad,
our
para la
institutions
inteligencia,
without
hacer lo que se dice,
showing
inteligencia pública.
fear
Muchas gracias
in the
por su
usage of
intervención.
artificial
Y a
intelligence in the
continuación
public
nos presenta
sector.
la maestra Leticia
Okay,
Martínez
now
Martiñón.
we have
Es
Ms.
licenciada en
Leticia
actuaría,
Martinez
posee una
Martiñón. She
maestría
holds a
en
bachelor's
especialidad de
degree in actuarial
administración
science
y
and a
coordina
master's degree in
tareas en
actuarial
diferentes
management
agencias
of Social
especializadas.
Security.
Cuenta
Her
con
academic
maestría
background
en
is
otra
further
en relación a la
enriched
salud para la
by
elaboración de
two
modelos
specializations, one in
sobre proporcionar
demography
la
and another
salud
in the
para
introduction to the ILO
capacitación
Health,
con buenas
focused on the development of
prácticas
actuarial models
2024.
for the good practices
Su
for
proyecto profesional incluye
virtual
la colaboración
part.
con entidades gubernamentales en México,
Her professional
aportando
experience
las posibles
includes collaboration with the
soluciones.
National
A
Population
nivel
Council and
internacional ha
INEGI
trabajado con
In
el gobierno
Mexico.
mexicano,
Internationally,
Comisión
she
Nacional de
has worked
Estadística
with
y en
the
la
Dominican
Superintendencia
government
de
at the
Salud
National
y Riesgos
Statistics
Laborales.
Office at the
Fue también
Superintendence
presidenta de
of
la
Health
Comisión
and
Permanente
Occupational
de Control y
Risks.
Financiamiento de los años
And also
2015
she
al
served
19
as
y
president
del
of the
año
American
académico
Commission on
ha sido
Actuarial
docente
Science and
en
Financing
pregrado y posgrado en el
2015-2019,
Instituto Tecnológico de Santo
and has
Domingo.
taught both in
Impartiendo
undergraduate and
materias
postgraduate
actuariales y
courses at
estadísticas.
Intech. She is currently
Actualmente,
an
la maestra
actuary
Martínez Martiñón es representante
is representative of the member institutions for the CIESS Board of Directors and the conference. And within the Social Security Dominican system, she serves as actuary for the Family Health Insurance and Occupational Risk Insurance with the Actuarial Management Directorate, being responsible for the technical actuarial solvency to ensure the sustainability of the Social Security system. In addition, she represents the CIESS lecturers commission at CIESS. Thank you very much. I will pass the floor to Ms. Leticia Martinez. Thank you very much. Can you hear me well? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we can see the presentation as well. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you all from the CIESS in Dominican Republic institution for the invitation. And personally, for me, it's an honor to share this chair with all people, with all the people here. And I would like to mention that this year I will have 15 years of experience as a lecturer in tech by providing the subject of mathematics and actuarial science focus. For me, it's an honor to start talking on the future of actuary science in a changing world.
¿Cuánto cuesta no saber cuánto va a costar? Para los sistemas de protección social del mundo, la respuesta se mide en billones de dólares. Y en personas.
Okay, so what is the cost of not knowing how much it will cost? So we all know that there are millions of people that are not protected, where the resources are scarce. The actuarial project maximize the value.
Vamos a compartir.
Okay, now today we will share these 5 reflections.
Estos elementos. 15 minutos, espero concluir.
Okay, I hope that I can conclude in 15 minutes. So the actuary towards the future, we have 5 critical subjects for the actuary, which we have the elderly, the actuary in action that has to do with the tendency as a monitor of change, and just to take action which the world needs. The actuary science today, the actuary is not a recent subject. It has almost 130 years of history. Around 70,000 professionals in the world has an important role. The actuary is a discipline that is translated into that translates the uncertainty into numbers, with which we make decisions. According to the Associations of Actuary Science, we have approximately more than 70,000 certified actuaries and approximately 60 or plus associations in the world. And where we can work? Well, an actuary, they are working in the insurance, life, or pension systems for the passive evaluation, sustainability and reforms, in social security, in public health, establishing a sufficiency for different quotations, in a comprehensive risk system for the catastrophes, and artificial intelligence and data science, and for the regulatory efficiency. This is not a new role. Actually, the actuary science serves on information for databases, and this is integrated to make them know. And there is a paradox that within the Social Security, we all suffer within the actuary science, because actuary science is always considered within the pension system. But if we review the role of actuary within the pensions, we are only seeing a third of the problem. The actuary has a critical role in each of these 5 steps, not only in pensions. We have already mentioned, or our lecturers already mentioned, on our role as inclusive population for non-contributive systems, the healthcare sustainability, sufficiency in occupational risks, pensions, and elderly people, and the comprehensive management of information.
Dos frentes donde la actuaría puede transformar la cobertura social. Solamente les voy a hablar.
Okay, so we have two items here for the actuary can transform the social coverage. So we have the non-contributory inclusion. I mean, our models of Social Security always visualize a model of a employee-employer. And in different systems, they don't have any opportunity for this kind of workers. Between the 50-80% of the labor force in Latin America come from Latin America, Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. So actually, what we can do for actually with some other professions that are within the work of Social Security. So the actuarial work is that provide inclusion, viability, by setting differentiate taxes, rates, scopes, gradual scopes that accumulate your rights in a proportional way. Therefore, the ILO says that by extending coverage, universal coverage, between 2% of them. Without actuary, this is only an estimation. With actuary is public policy.
En la parte de salud, la sostenibilidad en salud, el principio actuarial es
in healthcare, for the healthcare sustainability, the actuary is the core. Within the sustainability for the coverage in health, we can establish primes for the risk profile, beginning with 2 variables, which are age and sex. And then we can just visualize the primes for risk associated with mobility and region. The financial impact on adding or just to eliminate coverage of health has a cost. Projections for the sinistrality to protect chronic risk or oncological risk and the mental health. The funds of the risk within regions. And actually, this is the main role of actuaries within the science, the healthcare science, which is a coverage for state resources with the dispersion of the background of different coverage provided. I mean, for each of the coverage for the affiliates. So any benefit can be incorporated with a benefit plan for health if it is not determined that the prime is pure, because it is impact of the rate of quotation, it's not financially sustainable. Now, in occupational risks, the actuary as the safeguard of transfer of the transparency of the system. Here, they have a double challenge, not only to visualize the protection of the healthcare people when they have an occupational risk or an ailment that is translated into an accident or an professional illness, but also they have to visualize a part of the economical benefits, indemnizations, and the way we constitute these passives to guarantee the long-term rentability. And visualize those quotations according to the risks. And also, it is a comprehensive manager of the information. Why? Because in our different information databases that support us to get information in a quicker way, but also is how it is managed, who pays, how it is paid, all the value of salary, the value of financing sources to that protection and how is it used, and what are the variables that are pressing the income in this case, if we are talking about the contributive models, or if it's a company. If we talk about the non-contributive models, so what the independent worker does or non-contributory worker does, and the state, what is the state, or what is provided by the state. In that way, we can start seeing how this variable of income is being growing, to which we apply a quotation rate, and also how people get older, or how we can do that the young people can get into the social security systems. So when we don't open or we don't visualize this open towards this contributive system, the young people can get benefits from that, but there is no coverage at all. So if we don't manage the information in a comprehensive way, we don't visualize alerts or those elements that are key for the comprehensive management of the different benefits that are provided. And of course, when we are already visualizing the benefits that depend on models of mortality law, and of course, an interest rate, we have to visualize the real mortality versus the actuarial tables. And of course, just to establish different tables or boards, sorry. So we have that information that we are visualizing as how things are happening within the Social Security.
Ya nuestros antecesores de este ciclo tan hermoso que hemos tenido.
So now, previous experts have already mentioned, okay, so what is happening? Young people are not contributing and we are getting old. There is not only a pressure for the quotation rates, what we are not covering, but also it is a pressure for the accumulation of funds. Term, because there is where the actuary enters or work, because our work should be visible. What will happen with that 60% of young people that are within the informality in Latin America and the Caribbean? Our rates, the passive and asset boards that are backing all that pressure that we have for all that are getting pension or retired, that are already in the age of the retirement, how we can answer, how can we meet the needs within this system? So now we are trying to say, for instance, in terms of the Dominican Republic, we are managing in the pension system with only red numbers. We don't still have that flow, because this reform is a recent one within our system. So what will happen after 2030 when the courts, when we start breaking this for the individual capitalization systems so that we can provide a pension that is according to the individual capitalization. so that they afford it. So in this perfect storm, we can see here that we have to start working. So the importance here is today for a better future. Around 92% of million people are in informality. And also we have an irregular quotation in which they have the quotation, but then the system doesn't cover my needs. So I'm just I'm just paying, but of course I won't complete the requirements or to meet the requirements so that we can get a pension. And also we have the other. So we have the end of the life sources. We have a period of payment that surpasses the expenses already contemplated, and we have a mortality boards that should be updated. Or something that we are not expecting is that the pensioners reduced.
Los sistemas de pensiones son la promesa más larga que una sociedad hace a sus
trabajadores. Now, the pension systems are the longest standing promise a society makes to its workers. Honoring that promise is not an act of political will. It is an exercise in actuarial rigor sustained over decades. Now, we have 5 lines of priority. Continuous actuarial monitoring, actuarial evaluations, and now the actuary in action. So we have here the mega tendencies that already mentioned, which that make them the dimension of the actuarial science. We have the artificial intelligence, but actually the actuary is not being replaced, but they are the architect for the predictive numbers. We as actuaries or managers, we already had prediction models for greatest models for the validation for the population rebalance. And here we have some key important factors such as the climate change and how to visualize the actuary or the cybernetic risk in this.
Llamada a la acción, lo que el mundo necesita hacer hoy para reducir la brecha de justicia social.
So what the world should do today to reduce the gap of social justice. And this is not only a technical problem, but this is a social protection problem. The ones that need the rigorous actuarial management are the ones that have less access to this capacity. Now we have 5 conclusions. The actuary is the infrastructure, the invisible infrastructure for the social protection. And we need the periodic evaluations that should be done for international governance. A country can be an actuary from the crack and with less generation. The artificial intelligence is widened or widens our experience, but it is not replaceable. The actuary is invisible infrastructure. The system that has it can surpass the challenges. And now for the last quotations, the future of a profession for social justice is the actuary science for the 21st century. Thank you so much. All right, thank you very much. I have some questions for you. Only 22% of actuarial science in Latin America. Which one would you consider that will be the first urgent measure for the governments to accelerate the transformation of these professionals? And if it's enough for academic incentives, or would you suggest a change within the international governance?
¿Qué es lo que pudimos hacer en República Dominicana?
So what we
Por eso
can
mi
do in
ponencia se
Dominican
llama
Republic,
Migrando
and
como
that is
Migrantes.
why I call my
Obviamente, los
presentation the
sistemas de
migration of
planificación actuarial,
capacities. So for the actuarial
no
science
tiene una
training,
base matemática,
it doesn't
tiene
have a
una base
mathematical
económica,
base. It
tiene
has an
una base
economical base,
multidisciplinaria.
a multidisciplinary
Entonces, también los
basis.
actuarios a veces
Because
nos
also
cansamos y nos decimos,
actuaries,
es
we
decir, necesitamos
would get
actuarios,
tired. So
pero
because we
entonces
need
ponemos trabas
actuaries,
para definir un programa
but most
académico.
of the times
Es decir,
we just
elementos
have
claves
some
para empezar.
bridges to develop an
República
academic
Dominicana
program.
empezó
Dominican
con
Republic
esta migración de
started with this
capacidades.
migration of capacities.
Población cubana,
Cuban
cubanos, que de hecho la idea de
population or
licenciatura
mathematical experts
con concentración
from
en
Cuba
actuariales,
with concentration
la
of
idea
actuarial
de
sciences.
un
And
migrante
this was an
cubano
idea
con
by a
un
migrant from
matemático que
Cuba.
pene piedra. ¿Y qué es lo que hizo el doctor? Dijo, bueno, me apoyé
And this doctor
México, se apoyó con México
was
a
supported by
través de las
Mexico
universidades,
through the different
UNAM, la
universities,
Universidad de Puebla,
UNAM,
para
University
ver
of
el
Puebla,
perfil actuarial,
to
cómo
see or
podríamos.
to review that profile of actuarial
Y obviamente
science.
contacta a
And of
mí, que soy
course,
migrante, soy
he
mexicana,
contacted me
y
because
me
I'm from
dice,
Mexico, and he
necesito
told me,
que
okay,
estructures todo el
I need you
contenido
to
de la
structure
parte
all the
actuarial.
content of the
Entonces,
actuarial
fue
part.
voluntad política,
So it was a political
educativa,
will
de manera inicial.
in an
También
educational
había una
way.
presión en República
And also
Dominicana
we
en el
had a
2010
pressure from
con
Dominican
las
Republic in
reformas que se habían
2010 with the
hecho
reforms
en
made
la parte de la legislación de
in
la
terms
seguridad
of the
social en
legislation of
2007,
Social Security in
que desde
2017.
junio 2007 que empezaba el régimen
I think that in
contributivo,
2007 that we started with a
2009,
contributory
cuando
regime.
2001, creo que cumplimos 25 años.
I
La
think
ley
that in
entró en vigor
2001 we have
2001,
20
9 de mayo.
years around
La ley que
approximately.
también cambió la parte
And we
de
started with a law that
regular
changed
la parte de
the
seguros
part of insurances,
y
how to
la
regulate
parte
it,
de CIPEN,
and the part of
Superintendencia
CPAM,
de
the
Pensiones.
Superintendency of
Entonces, todos
Pensions.
estos elementos
So all these
hicieron
elements
que incluso las primeras
make
generaciones
it happen for the new
generaciones
generations to
de
be
licenciados en matemáticas con concentración
professionals with bachelor's
ciencias
degree
actuariales y
in
estadísticas.
science,
Y
artificial
muchos
science
otros
and mathematics. And most of them receive scholarships. And there were a lot of people that like mathematics, but they wanted to apply them. So we have around 15 years of generation, these kind of capacities. So Intech has changed the initial model that initially we didn't have with the management of information through important modules such as programming. And also we add financial structures on how to administrate the financial progress. And now we have a modification or update that makes an emphasis of the social insurances, but not only for that, but the economical part as well. Ensuring that the Intech University has been acknowledged as a university that has a potential for this and process data. So I think that is something that has to do with start working and also for all the information that we have and the capacities that we have, the actuaries. And not only, and one or almost one of and one of the graduates, or most of them, have been my students. So these are the elements of innovation. We have people from Germany or young people as directors. Or we have generations from 30 years old as already regional directors from insurance companies. Why? Because they liked to be part for the actuarial part, some in insurances, some others in financial, or finances, some others in social security, and some others are
Muchas gracias.
independent.
Puede.
Thank you very much.
Y también recordarles que en el segundo
And
trimestre,
also I would like to mention that in the third semester, the fourth semester, we have also the actuarial sciences course. And some other question for Dr. Evelina. How we can design a social contribution model so that the owners of the automatized processes, due to the different human positions, can be replaced?
Bien, creo que necesitamos adaptar nuestras instituciones de seguridad social,
I
¿no?
think that we have to capitalize our social security
mencionaron mis
institutions, as
colegas,
my colleagues
debemos
already
aprovechar
mentioned.
los avances
So we have to
tecnológicos
leverage
para
the
mejorar el sistema de
technological
empleo
progress
y seguridad
to create
social. Y por
employment and
esto
social
creo
security.
que las cotizaciones
And that is
deberían
why the
desvincularse del
quotations
empleo,
should
¿sabes?
not be linked
Pensar
to
en
employment.
una seguridad social no contributiva
So with a
que
non-contributory
proviene
social
de su financiación de
security
los impuestos
that
indirectos o algo
its
así.
financing
Porque si
comes from
tenemos un
the taxes,
escenario
because we have
disminución
a
de los
scenario
empleos
of
formales
diminishing
que
of
todavía
the
van a continuar
informal employments.
existiendo
However, it
y
will continue
de
existing,
aumento
of course.
de los empleos informales. Entonces, me parece es que este
So
modelo
I think that this
de cotización
model of
y de
quotation
financiación de los sistemas de
or
seguridad
financing
social
of
ya
the social
no
security
responde
systems
a esta
doesn't
nueva realidad tecnológica.
don't meet the
Entonces,
new
esto no
technological
es
reality needs.
una medida fácil,
So this is not a
claro,
easy
como
measure.
ya ha mencionado la doctora Leticia, eso
As
depende
Ms. Leticia
la
already
capacidad de los
mentioned, it
sistemas,
depends on the
de la
capacity of
capacidad
the
del
systems
Estado
and the capacity
y de
of the
los riesgos
state and the
que la
risks
financiación
that the financing
puede implicar en estos procesos. Pero creo que
implies in
una de
these
las
kind of
salidas es
processes.
pensar cómo
However, I
podemos
think that
generar
one of the
sistemas
things that we
no vinculados al
should think
empleo
about
tradicional,
are the how we can
porque
create systems not to
si
be part of
continuamos con este modelo que ya
the, the,
no hace frente a
the
esta
current
nueva realidad,
source or the
vamos
current
a continuar con un porcentaje de
tools.
trabajadores
So we
despedidos,
will
¿no?
need to
Entonces hay
work
que
with
pensar
a
cómo
percent of
planear
non-protected
sistemas de seguridad
personnel
social no
and how to
contributivos y
create a
cómo y
non-contributory
sostenibles.
system
Eso es importante,
and
¿no? Porque
how this can
a
be
veces tenemos
sustainable in the
que
future.
pensamos en un sistema no
And
contributivo, pero
most of the times
hay
we
que
think about a
pensar en la
non-contributory system, but we
sustentabilidad
have
de
to start
este
talking
sistema. Tiene
on
que ser
the
sostenible
sustainability
a
of this
largo plazo
kind
para
of
proteger
systems
a
in the
los
long
trabajadores.
term,
Entonces,
so that
creo
we
que
can
esto
support
es
employees.
una de las salidas, digamos así, para
So I
esta
think
nueva
that one
realidad.
of the things that we
Muchas
should
gracias,
know,
doctora.
this is the one that I
Nos
mentioned.
acompañan.
Thank
Y
you
son
very much, Ms.
respuestas muy
Evelina.
concretas a
Of course,
realidades muy
this
concretas.
is answers,
Así de que
concrete answers
consideraría
for
muchas horas
concrete
de
realities,
conversación.
because
El
this
doctor
will
Mora le
take
pregunta,
longer.
¿qué decisiones concretas
Dr. Mora,
deben tomarse
what
hoy
concrete
para avanzar en
solutions should be
sistemas de
taken
salud
so that we can continue
participatorios,
for the anticipatory
equitativos y
healthcare
resilientes
systems
en las
and more
Américas?
resilient systems in the Americas?
Bueno, es complicado una respuesta muy concreta a esa pregunta
It's
tan
very
compleja, ¿verdad?
Una
complicated to
receta,
give
doctor.
a
Ocupamos responderla
concrete answer to
todos
a
los que estamos en
complex
el
question,
foro, porque
right?
sí es una pregunta
Because this is
bastante,
a very
o sea, lo que todos
complex or
quisiéramos poder
extensive
contestar de una manera más,
question.
de la mejor manera. Ojalá fuera técnica. Lamentablemente la respuesta a esa pregunta no tan
And the
solamente tiene
answer to
elementos
this
técnicos,
question not only has
sino que
technical
también tiene
elements,
elementos
but
políticos.
also
Es
has
decir,
political
hay
elements.
dentro de la
I mean,
sostenibilidad
within the
y la
sustainability
gobernanza
and the
anticipatoria y la
governance
inteligencia
of the
pública,
anticipation
hay
or
un elemento
public
político que es
intelligence,
muy
we have a
importante
political
y es
element
en qué
which is very
prioridad,
important.
¿verdad? Estamos
And
colocando
it's
el tema
because
de la
actually
salud y la seguridad
we
social.
are putting into
Yo
when
creo, en algún principio,
covering
por lo
the
menos todas las realistas que
healthcare
hemos
in
conocido a
this
través del estudio que hemos
debate.
hecho en
So
los
through
últimos
the
4
study
años
that
en
we
el,
have
en el
made in the
diplomado,
last four
que
years in the diploma course,
sistemas políticos,
the
los
political
regímenes de los países
systems
inciden
in our
mucho sobre
countries
la sostenibilidad
uh,
y
always
la planificación a largo plazo de los
in,
sistemas de salud. Pero sí creo que
insist in
hay una cosa que
sustainability.
es
And
fundamental.
there is
Creo que
something
no
which is
hay,
very important
no
because I
encuentro un
think
sector
that
que genere más
I don't
valor
find a
público que
sector
el sector de la salud y la seguridad
or public
social. Yo no creo que
sector
eso
within the social
como una
security
agenda
or aside
prioritaria.
of social security.
Creo que
So I
es
think that
fundamental
this
lo que
will
se
be
está
a
haciendo, por
priority.
ejemplo,
And
el
for
CIESS y
instance,
otras organizaciones que
what
están
we are
formando
doing at
capacidades, porque
CIESS or some of
también
these
tiene pocas
organizations that we are
capacidades
providing training,
técnicas para llevarlo.
technical
decir,
training
hay un
are very
escenario,
useful.
no es
I mean, there is a
el más
scenario which
probable, pero hay un
is
escenario en el
not
cual
probable,
sí
but
nos da la
actually we have
oportunidad
a scenario that
de
provides
establecer
us the opportunity to
las
establish
condiciones del sistema de
the
salud y
conditions
social
of
que
the
ocupamos a
healthcare and social
futuro.
security that we will
Si este
use
escenario
in the
se da y no
future.
estamos
If
preparados,
that
vamos a perder la
scenario
grandísima oportunidad
happen, we will
de
just
lograrlo. Así que
lose
yo creo
the
que
opportunity to
yo no
support
tengo una respuesta
others.
para esa pregunta, pero sí creo que
So I
empieza
don't have
por
a concrete answer
distinguir.
to
En
that
primera
question,
instancia,
but
que no es
I
un tema
think
solamente
that
técnico, también
this
es un
is not
tema
only a
político
technical
y también es un
thing,
tema
but it's
que
a
la
political
sociedad
thing
tiene que
as well.
resolver. Vi una
And
parada
this
muy
is something
bonita
that the
que
social
el nuevo
security
contrato
systems
de la
should
seguridad social, así como
address
el nuevo
with the
contrato
new
social,
contracts
pues tiene que haber un
for
nuevo
social
contrato para la seguridad
contracts,
social y
or also
la
we
salud
need
como un
other
elemento
contracts in
fundamental
social security
de la
and
seguridad social.
just
O
to
sea, entonces,
put
aunque son sistemas
the
diferentes,
healthcare
creo que
people
tienen
in
una
the first
complementariedad
place.
absolutamente fundamental. Así que a seguir investigando
So I think
y
that
a
we
seguir
have to
proponiendo,
continue
porque de eso se
researching and
trata,
just
de
to
que ver
continue proposing,
posibilidades,
because this is
porque
the aim of
la
these
vida es
kind
ver
of webinars, to
posibilidades
have different
y encontrar los
possibilities
caminos
and
técnicos
to
para
find technical
para hacerlas
mechanisms
alcanzables.
to make
Muchas
them
gracias,
happen.
doctor. Doctor Francisco Mujica, ¿quiere usted
Dr.
cerrar dos
Francisco
minutos
Mujica, you
antes
have
de
2 minutes to
despedirnos con la
conclude,
importancia de
or
la
just to provide
perspectiva
us
de la
with your
seguridad
conclusions
social?
before we say goodbye to this session, according to the topics of today's session.
Doctor, tiene el micrófono silenciado.
Está su micrófono apagado, doctor.
Your
Entonces,
mic
repito,
is
muchas
mute.
gracias, doctora Berenice y doctor
Thank you very much,
Dantes,
Dr. Berenice Meister
por
Dantes.
esta momento, espacio que
Thank you very much for this
brinda. Mire, en primer
space.
lugar, yo pienso, si
So,
hacemos
first of all,
una visión de conjunto
we
seguido
have a
este
a
esfuerzo,
vision
es que
together according to this forum.
el CIESS y específicamente los
The
investigadores y
CIESS and
docentes,
specifically
pero el CIESS como
lecturers
tal
or researchers
está metido de cabeza en el tema de la
are
importancia que tiene el
interested in the
futuro.
importance of the
Y
future.
eso es halagüeño. Y
And I think that this is for
nuevamente
the long term.
congratularme con
And
esto,
again, I
aplaudir
feel very
esta
happy and I
situación y
just applaud
felicitarlo
this
al CIESS.
situation
Lo
and
más
just to
interesante es
congratulate the
que
CS.
esto no
But the
es
most
novedoso
interesting thing
para
here
el
is that
CIESS,
this
es
is not
decir, no es que
an
en este
innovation for
momento
the
el CIESS
CS,
esté ingresando
because at this
a analizar
moment,
el
the
futuro,
CS
sino
is
que
just
lo ha hecho
getting
ya un
into
poco tiempo
the
atrás, lo
analysis
cual
of
era
the
un valor
foresight,
agregado gigante,
and this will
enorme,
be
porque
a
es una institución que
added
ve la seguridad
value
social, pero
in
no
terms of social
anclada en
security.
el pasado, sino con los
And
ojos
we not only
puestos
have to focus on
en
the
el futuro.
past, but just to see what
De
will
esto
happen
solo
in the
podemos ver la
future.
importancia que tiene
And with
analizar
this,
el
we
futuro,
can just
¿cierto?
see
El
the
futuro
importance on
verdaderamente
analyzing the future,
ilustre la actuación,
since
lo que hay que hacer en el presente.
this
¿Y
might
cómo lo
show
hacemos?
you,
Pues
it
viendo
might
las
show us what
tecnologías,
we
viendo
can
las
do
señales
during
del
the
futuro,
present to
como lo
leverage the
hemos planteado,
future.
y por lo tanto, pues entonces,
And therefore,
alternativas que son los
also
escenarios
we
que yo
have to
entiendo que
find
requiere para
alternatives
elegir la
for
mejor,
different
porque
scenarios
esto uno
to
no
choose the
predice,
best,
sino se
because the
construye.
future
Pero
cannot be
además de eso,
predicted, it is
aquí
built.
hay algo muy importante,
And
y es
besides
que
that,
la perspectiva en este momento en el
the
mundo
perspective
tiene
nowadays in the
ya
world
hijos y nietos, podemos decir.
has like
Hay unos
grandchildren
primos que llamo yo,
and
¿verdad?
sons.
Que es el foresight, que es
We have the
los estudios de futuro
foresight, which are the
de
future
tipo británico,
studies in
que
Britain or
emigraron a Gran
English
Bretaña y hicieron su
type,
vida en Gran Bretaña,
that they
que
just
tienen
were
una
migrants
gran
from the
diferencia,
Great
no una gran
Britain.
diferencia, pero una diferencia importante
And they have
con
a
la
important
perspectiva
different
francesa,
from the
que
French
nosotros
perspective or
hemos
foresight.
planteado. La diferencia está que
And the
mientras el
difference
foresight
lies that
se
in
orienta fundamentalmente
that the
a los aspectos
foresight
técnicos, es
focuses
decir,
on
cuáles
technical
son las luchas del
aspects
futuro, cuáles son las
and what
tendencias,
all the future
y
tendencies
diseñamos
or the
unos escenarios y
signals, and
dejamos
we
en
design
manos
different
de
scenarios, and
los que
this will
tienen
take
la capacidad
a
de dirigir
the wheels will
entonces
be taken from the
las
ones that are the
instituciones.
capacity of manage
Esa
the
es una manera
institutions.
interesante de ver el
So this
futuro,
is an interesting way to see the
transformativa,
future or to
digamos,
analyze the
en manos
future,
de las que
because this will
toman
be on
las que
hands
toman
on those that
decisiones.
manage
Y la
the
perspectiva
decisions
nos ayuda a
of the
tomar decisiones.
institutions.
Pero lo más interesante
But the
es
most
ese
interesting
enfoque
here is
voluntarista,
that the
estratégico
voluntary,
voluntarista,
strategic,
que
voluntary
echa mano
vision
de la gobernanza. Es decir, que
that is supported by the
la
governance,
decisión
I mean, the decision is not made only by a person, but most the social development actors make the decisions. So first of all, we have to identify who are these actors, the actors, the production means, or the civil actors. Well, these kind of actors should make the decisions so that they can get the voluntary. This is a consensus, and all agree, and all agree on the future that we want. And actually, I would like to mention that this has been an excellent chair, and foresight is fundamental. And this is our principal idea that I would like to address today, to look for competitiveness and development so that we can do things with excellence. And on the other hand, also not to stay in the past, but also just to visualize the future. So this is something that we will continue working with CIESS, and will take us, will give us an important competitive vision to continue working on these topics. And as Gaston mentioned, we have to think on the human being. And this is all for my intervention. Thank you very much. All right, so thank you very much for each of these expositions and reflections that we all addressed today. And today I have a lot of reflections, and thank you very much, everyone, Miss Leticia, Miss Avelina, Dr. Mojica. Thank you very much. And I just congratulate you all. Thank you for your for all the participants in the chat also, who are online. Okay, just to recall you, in around 10 or 9 days, working days, you will receive a certification of the participation on this webinar or this chair. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a great day.